knowing that we brought such a person in that center? Do we have to believe you, what you are saying?
Honorable member, please do believe me. There's lots of inmates there
thank
with
you.
a very high profile
Thank
that
you
we are
very
keeping
much.
in the center. It's 2,928. Very high profile inmates.
Thank you very much. Chair, I just want to find out, Chair, we have Mr. Kobus, who is the national director. We have two directors who their works are your work is very important. Like, let's take, for example, Mr. Munyani. You are responsible for the facility, you are a center director. I believe that you are every day there. You're supposed to be there every day, or maybe you'll tell us if you're not there every day, both of you. Because the other one, Mr. Gert, you are responsible for risk management within the center. And I'm sure you understand the work that you are doing. There's somewhere where I'm going with. Thank you.
Depending on the challenges that are coming, then I will not find myself at the center.
I get the idea. When you are not there, who is there on your behalf?
I do have the deputy director, Ms. Derek de Klerk.
Where was Mr. Derek de Klerk on the day of the incident? Both of you, one of you was present on.
Yes, Honorable Chair, you will have realized on the slide when I have done the presentation is one of the people that has arrived at the scene, those early hours of the morning.
No, I'm saying that time, at that time, who was the manager supposed to be the on-site operational manager? Or you don't have something like that?
Honorable member, unless I don't understand the question, but how it works, during the night there is a senior official on duty whom we call the night duty operations supervisor.
Who's that one, the name?
In this case it was Senue Matsuara.
Or the one that you talked about?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I would like to believe that you have a system of reporting, Mr. Kobus and your team. Can you fashion this or tell us today or how your reporting system goes?
Honourable Chair, my two colleagues who are intimately involved with the operations of the facility report in the G4S line of command to the director who's in charge of our Southern Africa operations. So these are operations across South Africa and Southern Africa countries, with the Mangaung facility then being one of those facilities or businesses that operate or report into him.
Sorry, Chair, can he raise the voice? I can't hear properly.
Am I a bit soft?
Yes, you're a bit
Okay.
going down.
Shall I start again?
No, some of it I did hear.
Okay,
some.
yes.
Yeah, you can continue.
So the facility reports to we refer to it as a cluster director. This is a person, a senior person within G4S who's responsible for the activities in Southern Africa, obviously South Africa, one of those countries, and the Mangaung facility being one of those businesses accountable to him. That information flows on a continuous basis, and there's a lot of cooperation between colleagues in the Mangaung facility and that individual. If you ask specifically about me, I'm the commercial director for Africa, so I have an Africa remit dealing with commercial matters pertaining to G4S's activities. As I said this morning in my introduction, I'm also a director of G4S Care and Justice, which is one of the entities related to the Mangaung facility.
So my apology, I don't want to be rude. I think I got that one early in the morning. So I just wanted to find out exactly how do you get a report, particularly from this team. But I think I got that one. So can I get from them now? Because my time is short and the
Absolutely.
person is going to kill me. can I find out their reports? I just want to hear the content, the deep issues of the report as to daily. Do you report daily, hourly, monthly, quarterly? Because I'm getting somewhere. Yes or no?
Honorable Member, in terms of the inmate behaviors, let's say there's an unusual behavior that is happening in the center. We are obliged by the contract to report to the controller on site 1 hour after the incident has happened.
No. I don't want the incident. I'm saying the reports in terms of the activities of the facility, because if there is something wrong within the facility, if the reports are being done or reporting is taking place, something will be, you will find something along the way. Somebody who is going to receive those reports will find something. So I want to know, do you report, do your officials, because if I'm saying report, not specifying exactly your report from the ground up to your level, to the level of the national, I want that system.
Honourable Member, possibly I can answer that. The reporting line is directly to the controller who's on site. There's daily reports being submitted to the controller on all activities at the centre on a daily basis. The controller in his case reporting to the National Commissioner via the Contract Management Office in Pretoria.
So those, it means they do receive those reports early, every day.
Yes, there's a contractual obligation that if we're not supplying those reports, we will receive a notice and it will follow into a penalty if we've been found guilty on that.
So it means within your reports, there must be a risk, some risk that you've noticed in terms of what is happening within the facility, especially from your side.
The risk is not in the report. We've got a risk register that we manage in the centre, which is containing all the company risks that is involved in that, and the operational risk, if it's like that. In this case, I can confirm that the investigation proved that up until this incident, there was no confirmation of misbehavior on the side of Bester. There was no disciplinary offences registered against Bester up until that point, and there was no information that was shared with us prior to this incident from
Okay, thank
Bester.
you. Okay, but let me say about other reports within the center. Did you report, did you get any reports in terms of how especially I'm driving to the point of the issues, complaints of the inmates and everything that is happening here in terms of how they are treated, how they are being, because I'm saying this because there's a report that I've read about that I want to know if the national office has received. The report of 2013 about the beatings that are happening within the facilities, about I'm passing, because about also the issue of the inmates being injected and all. I just want you to give us I want to see if these reports, they do go to the places where they're supposed to go, so that you are able to mitigate some of the problems that we are facing today about these dangerous inmates. Do you get the report of the wrongdoings within the facility as you're supposed to be receiving, Mr. Kobus? Because I can see that from
yes.
that side I can't get what I want.
Let me answer that question, Honourable Member. Information filters through the organisation like any other organisation. The more material matters are raised to senior levels. So, for example, the report that you're referring to in 2013 is before my time, but that report would have gone to senior levels. There was mention made earlier this morning about a Ruth Hopkins report. That report, being a controversial report and an important report, would have gone through the channels. Where I sit on the BCC board, on a quarterly basis, I get informed of the material matters pertaining to the facility. And I can assure you that when the incident was converted from the police from a suicide to a murder, that information would have gone way beyond my level and would have gone to the international head office, because that is a material development.
Do you know if something was done about these things, those that were reported?
You have 10 minutes.
Honourable Member, I can,
I want to know how do you deal with the whistleblowers within the center?
Mic is off.
Off, Chair. Sorry. In fact, these questions are taking me to the point of how do you deal with the whistleblowers? Because these people, they come and get this information of Besta, you know it from, you know, some of their wrongdoings there, they might have been reported, because there are so many things that has been reported that you have never attended to. So how do you deal with the issue of the whistleblowers? People who are giving information as to the wrongs that are happening within the facility.
Honorable Member, what we are normally doing if we do get information from inmates, we will do a document where we write our findings as well as our recommendation, and then we'll take that document and submit to the controller on site, where we'll normally recommend that either the inmate must receive either 12 months remission of sentence or whatever that document of DCS is giving to say for divulging information the inmate can receive either between 1 month and 3 months or between 3 months and 6 months.
Okay, I have only 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
There are names, you are saying there are people who are suspended. They are 7. The 3 ones, they are 7, we don't know about the 4, but are these, I should think, is Mr. Tsonoge and Mr. Johnson, Ms. Johnson, Mabutz, and also Mr. Mabutza among those people?
Honourable Member, that's the 3 people that's already been dismissed. Sonoy, Janssen.
Are the only people that, in all that happened in this Bester Saka that are being responsible or being found having committed wrong on this?
Honourable Member, as we said earlier today, those are the 3 members whose actions are not in accordance with their duties and with the policies and procedures. So we therefore question their motives on that evening, and for that reason, we've dismissed them. It's also one of the reasons why SAPS arrested one of them in the last few days. Then we mentioned earlier today that pertaining to the Sallyport incident where the vehicle passed into the facility back in April 2022, 7 members have to date been suspended whilst that investigation is ongoing. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. I've got names here. I want you to tell me who are these people and what is their duty at work, and where were these people when all this was happening? And if possible, why are these people not suspended or fired? 1, I have John. I don't know, is Koglai or is Coanglalae? Who is this person? That is number 1. Tell this house. Number 2, I have somebody by the name of Anike Lechranje. Who is this person? What is he doing? And also I have this person, Ida. All of these people are part of your team in the center. And the only people that has been suspended or fired or being found doing wrong, there are only 3 there. The one that you have spoken about. So my question, which is the question before the last one, is that why is it only, I'm going to be very controversial with this one, Chair. Why are we only having those 3 blacks when we have these others who are not blacks, who were part of that? I'm sorry, Chair, to be controversial, but I just want to say it. Are you G4S racist?
Honourable
That
member,
is the- I'm
no,
going
we
to
are
get
not.
to- You are not?
No, we're not.
Okay. Can I hear from you? Why only 3 people and blacks for that matter? When there are other people who are managers, I'll tell you because it seems as if you don't want to tell me who are those people. Number 1, we have Ida, who's a security supervisor. And he must be knowing who said that the car must get inside. He must be having a report. But you don't have a report here about that security supervisor. We have this Lekranche, who is an operational manager. I am telling you because you don't want to tell me. The reason why I'm saying, are you a racist, is because they are white. And they were responsible. They're supposed to be part of the people who have given the responsibility and accountable for all these things that we are talking about today. Chair, for the last question, can they give us the answer on that one? Sorry. Okay.
You are left with 3 minutes.
Honourable Member, can I answer you quickly? Ida is the newly appointed supervisor after Sonoy was dismissed. It's a lady that's working for us. She was not working as the supervisor at the date of the incident. Then Gongwai was the person that worked in Broadway the night of the incident, and he reported all the information to us. The investigation did not prove any involvement, and therefore he was not suspended, nor was a disciplinary action against him. And the same with Anneke Legrandsie, the operations manager.
This John, is this John who left immediately before the incident happened?
That's correct, madam, but he didn't, honourable member, he didn't leave. He was instructed by the supervisor, and that formed part of the supervisor's disciplinary action, why he instructed this person to leave his position to attend to a medical emergency.
The same supervisor who allowed the car to come in and removed the person who was refusing to give those people permission to get in.
No, honourable member, that supervisor is the one that's currently being detained by the SAPS, who was involved in the situation on both occasions, on the 29th as well as on the 2nd and 3rd of May that night.
This Aniki Legrand, you are saying is a new person?
No, she's not a new person. She's been in a long time in the position as operations manager. Ida is the new person.
No, but this Legrand you're saying is an operational manager.
That's correct.
So
honourable
I'm
member.
saying, where was she also? Because they are, once we're dealing with these operations there.
She was not on duty during that incident. She, the person that was on duty in the incident that was in charge was Sonoy.
Why do you think is a coincidence that these people, they decided to leave, not be in duty on that day, left earlier before the whole thing, the real thing happened?
Madam Chair, sorry, honourable member, that person did not leave. There's a shift pattern according to which people work, and it wasn't those people that had to be on shift. The night shift people was on shift when this incident happened, which was 23 of them, under the supervision of Mr. Sonoy, that's currently being dismissed.
Because if you look at this thing, it was not, it did not happen it was planned. We all agree now that it was a plan. It was a plan. Because of the shift that we have, you know, it takes me to the question of Honorable Yako, that are you saying, for example, you are not supposed to have been investigated yourself as
Honorable Chair.
the people who are responsible for the center. Chair, my last question is that, plus the one that I've asked. My last question is, it goes to Mr. Kobas. Mr. Kobas, after all that has been said in this house, are you still denying that you have failed DCS as your person who you are contracted with, and also the government of this country? Have you, Chair.
Thank you.
Honourable Member, I'm not denying, and I can't recall that I have denied that we have not failed. It's clear that this was a very, very carefully orchestrated plan of Bester to break out of MCC. And it is clear that we have indicated to the police those members whose actions on that night we cannot reconcile. And we've given those names to the police. And I think for me, the fact that the police recently arrested one of them, based, amongst others, on information that we provided, is testament to the fact that we have cooperated throughout. It also proves that certain of our members may have been, well, we know at least one was involved in the incident that evening. I hope I've answered your question.
You mean only those
no,
3 black
no,
people? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Swart.
Chair, thank you very much. Just following on with my colleagues' questions, a lot has gone around the role of Integratron and the issue around the cameras. Have you received any feedback from them as to the involvement of their technician that night, where the technician indicated when he went off duty everything was working? I don't know who answered that question. Have you received a subcontractor of G4?
Honorable Swart, your
Yes.
voice is too soft today. I don't know why.
The voice is too soft. Did you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yeah.
I just want to find out whether you've received any information from them relating to their investigations as to their technician.
Honourable Member, no. I did not receive any feedback from them as yet on any investigation conducted by them.
I understand the affidavit that there was a polygraph test done on one of their technicians, and I'm sure we will deal with that at a later stage, where that technician failed the polygraph test. Just to then move across what the notorious Cell 35, we were there last week. And if you look at the corridor, besides the cameras that were not working, there's an official posted there. In the middle of the corridor, there's an official. So what happened to that official that night? Was he there? Is he being investigated? Because besides the camera, which obviously you couldn't see, I looked myself, you couldn't see what was going on there. But there is an official there on night duty who's in that position. Where was he that night?
Honourable Member, that employee is the one that was requested by the previous committee member, Gongwai. He was removed by the supervisor, Senoi, that night, and he has sent him to a medical emergency in one of the other living units in Waltz to attend to the medical emergency there. That did form part of the disciplinary procedure against Senoi, which led to his dismissal, because he removed employees from single positions, which he was not allowed to do within the policies and procedures.
So the Cell 35, which we know is at the right-hand side looking down, and the emergency exit is below that, which can only be controlled by the control room, who are watching with cameras, but they're also the only ones that can open the emergency and the cell door. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the control room, and those were the 2 control room people that have been suspended and dismissed. Is that correct?
100% correct.
And they will be facing criminal action as well, one presumes.
We've reported that to the SAP as well, their actions, and we've given them all the documentation and the records that was kept in the control room. Yes, Honourable.
When was Mr. Bester admitted to the facility? Roundabout, yeah?
I'm not 100% correct. I think it was 24 October 2014 or 13. I might be wrong with the year.
2013.
Yes.
I think it
13,
is.
14. I might be incorrect with that. I can come back with the exact date.
So he's been around the prison for a long time. People know him. Is that what wardens would know him in the facility? He's been around there for almost 8, 9 years.
That's correct.
And yet he's able to allegedly conduct a business from prison. Is that not deeply concerning? Does the G4S, are you aware of all the allegations around him running a business, and has any investigation been done into that?
Honourable Member, maybe I can answer that one. We are aware of the allegations. We have no evidence available to us that in fact took place.
Sorry, Mr. Groenewald, there is more than enough evidence. If you go on Facebook, if you can see videos of Mr. Bester addressing a launch conference where he's supposed to be in prison. Are you aware of that?
I've not seen that video.
But that's highly irresponsible, I put it to you, sir.
And if the suggestion is that it's from New York, then I cannot
No,
fathom
the
how that is
picture,
possible.
it's very easy to ascertain whether that person who purports to be someone from New York, one can ascertain and do an investigation into that. I'm perturbed that you seem to bear no knowledge of it, or you're not concerned about it. Do you have any response to that?
I am concerned about that.
That no action has been taken at all in that regard.
We've not been able to substantiate those facts,
Have you taken any steps at all to substantiate that?
not to my knowledge.
Well, that's inexcusable.
Sorry, Honorable Swart. I mean, given your responses, why should the country vest its security in your hands? Given your responses, because it's either you are seriously incompetent or you do not care.
Honourable Chair, it's not the case that we don't care. I think
Or if you don't care, you're incompetent.
if you look back at our track record over the last almost 22 years, I think we have a very good track record.
Now, leave the track record aside, but a company of your magnitude failing to answer this question asked by Honorable Swart, would anybody listening take that company seriously?
Honourable Chair, the best I can answer that question is to say that there are many allegations in social media, and the substance of what one sees nowadays in social media is very difficult to determine. We cannot investigate each and every social media allegation.
Mr.
Or you leave
Groenewald.
some of them?
Mr. Groenewald, given the outrage of the public about this incident, surely, when you read media reports or whatever, you would have, and given the fact that you sit on the board, and given the fact that you indicated earlier this would have international repercussions, surely it would have had some attention from you. This is very serious. It goes to the heart of the reputation of your company. But I can understand that you are unable to give a satisfactory explanation for that, but one can presume that it causes an uproar amongst the average South African and amongst us as well. I'm sure you'll agree with that. Can I just ask you then, back to the cell, and back to the fact that Mr. Bester was admitted in 2013. He's probably well known. He's been there almost 8 years. How tall was Mr. Bester? Do you know, offhand? Was he tall? Would you know how tall he is? He's a tall person, would you say?
I didn't work with Mr. Bester myself, so I cannot answer that question, but I can look into the records at the center where all this information is
Well,
available.
apparently he's 1.7 meters tall. How long was the body that was found in the cell? Do you have any idea?
I saw the length on the report that we
What was
received.
that?
The report that we received from JICS
Yes.
on the 2nd of February, and I think the length there, if I don't misinterpret it, is 1.49, 1.48.
1.45.
45.
There's a big difference between 1.7 meters and 1.45 meters. So at first glance, the warders that came to that cell would have known that the person that is burnt there was highly unlikely to have been Mr. Bester. Would you agree with that, given the fact that Mr. Bester is 1.7 meters, according to your own records, check them, and the body was 1.45 meters? Do you not agree, given the fact that he's been around, he's a tall person, here you have a very short body that is there? Surely it should have raised suspicions immediately. Can anyone explain that?
Honourable Member, my understanding, and again, I did not see these photographs, but my understanding is that the body, once the cell was opened and until the pathologists arrived, was covered in fire extinguisher residue. So at that stage, when the police arrived and investigated the scene and eventually removed the body, I don't think it's possible that our wardens, other than extinguishing the fire and then sealing the cell, was able to make that kind of assessment.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but it does raise questions as well, I'm sure. One doesn't know exactly the chain of events where the body was taken, but there's a big difference between 1.7, you're looking at a significant difference, but it does raise questions. Can I then just ask, Mr. Groenewald, you've painted, and in your report, you've painted a glowing picture of the facility, and we visited, and it is an impressive facility. But take us back to 2013, when the prison was placed under administration. You'll recall that. I don't know if you were there then.
No, Honourable Member.
But the prison was placed under
Yes.
administration due to unrest. A warder was taken hostage. What are the implications of a prison being, of the private prison being placed under administration?
My understanding, Honourable Member, is that in terms of Section 112 of the Correctional Services Act, the government can step in and take control of a prison if it believes that an operator has lost control of the prison. My understanding of the facts at the time was that there was an illegal strike. My understanding is the prison went into lockdown mode. We were still able to staff the prison based on minimum staff levels. However, it was felt that we were not in control of the prison, and Section 112 was invoked.
Now, there's an assertion that that section has been or may be invoked again. Obviously, that has dramatic implications on the companies involved as well. Would you agree?
Yes, I do, and I can confirm that Section 112 has again been invoked.
And you're busy with litigation in that regard, I presume, as well?
We have written, our legal advisors, Honourable Member, have written to the department to say that we do not agree with the fact that we have lost control of the prison. We can only assume that the actions in March of this year to suggest that we lost control of the prison goes back to the events of May last year.
But would you not agree, given everything that you've said and all the concessions you've made about this was a very carefully orchestrated plan for someone to escape, that it does indicate that that decision was warranted?
Honourable Member, that's to be debated. I think if one had to draw, and I don't want to make this comparison, but I think it's important to look at the numbers. If one had to look at the number of escapes from from MCC over the last 20 years, 21 years, in July, almost 22 years, and one were to apply that ratio to the total inmate population, correction, if you had to apply that to the DCS statistics, then by now we should have suffered around 20 to 21 escapes. And I don't want to draw that analogy, but I think on that basis, the very few escapes we've had is a record to be proud of. Having said that, each and every escape is a serious matter.
Can I just ask you, Mr. Groenewald, given the complicity of so many wardens in this matter, and as it's ongoing, it seems to be more and more, that would seem to me to vindicate a decision that the company has lost control of the facility. This is not just an isolated escape. This is a carefully planned escape with a lot of money being paid off, which seems to vindicate that. But can I just ask you, for every escape, is the company penalized? Is there a financial penalty?
Yes, there is a.
What is the financial
There is a
penalty?
penalty. I think Mr. Bielefeld can help me on the amount.
Currently, the penalty is just under 1 million rand.
1 million rand per escape. So obviously it's in your best interests that an incident like this should rather be seen as a suicide as opposed to an escape, because there's a financial benefit. Do you not agree?
If I can answer, Honourable Member, there's no difference in between the penalty for a suicide if negligence is proved, nor is there, on the escape, the penalty stays exactly the same.
But I find it astounding that the company has continued to hold the view that this was a suicide, despite the meetings with various state organizations. By the way, can I just ask you, when did you first hear of the High Court application that was brought for the obtaining of the body in Gauteng, the June 2022 application that contained the post-mortem report? You meeting with police on a regular basis? Surely someone would have mentioned that to you. Were you aware of that court case, any of you? And if so, when?
It was not mentioned to me during my discussions with the ECP, sir.
Were any of you aware of that court case?
No, Honourable Chair. Your member.
Because I noticed that you had meetings with SAPS, with JEX, subsequent to that court case, and I find it, I take your word for it, amazing that that was not raised, because that was in June 2022 already, where the affidavit was available, the post-mortem was available, which clearly indicated it could not have been Mr. Bester. It could not have been Mr. Bester. Firstly, there was no smoke in the lungs. The other issues that are raised there as well in that post-mortem report, that he was killed by a blunt instrument. There were other issues there, and I would think that that is very important. So at what stage was the first time that you became aware of the High Court application?
Honourable Chair, I can't recall the exact date, but it was recently that I became aware of that application.
I just want to get back to the Section 112, because obviously there are financial implications. We appreciate, I've been around a long time. I was here in 1999 when all those contracts were signed and everyone supported it. They thought it's a good idea, but it's obviously for profit, let's face it. It's about making a profit. So the Section 112 in 2013, it cost the company, is that correct? There's litigation ongoing at the moment about that.
That's correct.
How much is involved in that litigation?
I believe the number is around 110 million rand.
110 million rand.
Correct, yes.
So to have another Section 112 imposed on you now could have severe financial implications. You'd agree with that?
I do.
And so from your side, would it be incorrect to assume that you do everything to cover up as possible up to now? From an objective outsider, because there's a financial incentive here to protect and make sure that you don't have a Section 112 imposed.
Cover up what exactly, Honourable Member, if I may ask?
To cover up what happened in the prison.
Honourable Member, if we had the intention to cover up what happened in the prison, we would not, on the morning of the 3rd of May, immediately have called the police to the facility, and we would not.
But that was a suicide, a fire in a cell, a very innocent explanation that you continued with for many, many months. And it's only in the recent past that it's now come out when you say that we've now, it's been brought to your attention that it is now a murder and not a suicide. Only in the last few months, in March only? Is that correct?
And I believe I addressed that earlier on when I said that initially there was a suicide and SAPS agreed with us. On the 25th of May last year, they told us that they're now investigating, based on the pathology report, a murder. We asked for the pathology report, as I said, on the 1st of July 2022. That was not provided to us. We continue to engage with the authorities, and only, I believe, in the SAPS report dated the 4th of April to this committee, did we become aware that a case of escape had been opened. Prior to that, JICS did mention to us, I believe it was during the meeting of the 2nd of February, that they were investigating a possible escape. But we received no evidence of that.
The wardens and officials that are at the private facility are paid well when compared to their compatriots across the road. Would you agree with that?
I think Mr. Monyante or Beileveld would be better to answer
Are
that.
they paid more than their colleagues? Or would you say the same, or does it vary?
Honourable Member, I will say it vary, but it's more or less the same on certain levels, but there could be one of the other levels that's a little bit higher. While I'm on the opportunity to address you quickly is, I remember that on the 5th of May, we requested SAPS to come back. So if we wanted to hide something, when the accelerant was found, we wouldn't have informed the SAP to come back if there was a possibility of hiding information.
Well, at that stage, you were certain that it was a suicide. If you look at all the circumstances around, all the coincidences, and at whatever level, where even the Honourable Minister indicates that at least the night staff seem to have a very close conspiracy, but as you are investigating, it's getting broader and broader and broader. The conspiracy to achieve this remarkable escape, not only an escape, but the person is then declared and thought to be dead. It's quite a remarkable achievement from his perspective. Nobody would be looking for him at all. And you don't have to report an escape with, I can understand the financial penalties might be the same between a suicide and an escape, but an escape is far worse for your reputation. I'm sure you'll agree with that, Mr. Groenewald.
I would agree with
Swart,
that.
you have 10 minutes.
Just starting.
And the 10 minutes is starting.
10 minutes is starting. Mr. Groenewald, you indicated that you've cooperated comprehensively with all the institutions involved. The DCS is concerned because according to them, the outcome of your investigation was not provided to DCS until 31st of March, despite their formal requests to obtain it. So there doesn't seem to be that close cooperation. How would you comment about that? And why was your report only given to them the 31st of March, and this last week seems to be a great hive of activity for everyone?
Honourable Member, the investigation that we conducted, all the relevant information was shared with DCS. It's the report that was only given to them on the 31st of March, 31st of January. The reason why we delayed the report itself, notwithstanding the DCS having access to all the information, was we wanted the DCS to conduct an independent investigation and arrive at their own conclusions. Secondly, we were busy with labour matters. We were busy taking action against members of our staff who we had dismissed as it was reported earlier today. Those dismissals have been taken or have been filed with the CCMA, and we did not want to prejudice those processes.
I'm trying to understand the relationship between you and in terms of the contracts, and we are aware that the DCS alleges a broad number of contract breaches, which has led to the Section 112, which you would obviously dispute. But according to DCS, they requested these reports, and it was not forthcoming. And are you saying it was purely for these reasons of disciplinary actions?
To my knowledge, that was the reason. But as
those-
I say,
Sorry, those disciplinary actions you've indicated are ongoing. The CCMA matters, so that doesn't quite make sense to me, because they could go on for years. How would that impact?
we were obliged to give the report to JICS as well at the start of February 2022, which was 2 days after the date we gave the report from memory to DCS. And for that reason, we decided to disclose the report to DCS at that stage, although ideally we would not have wanted to do that, to do so.
Do you mind if I just ask you the approval, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around, I've got such limited time. The approval of Mr. Bester to go to Broadway. Now, DCS says there was no approval given for that. You indicated, and I noticed the wording that was used carefully. You kept on saying he applied, then he withdrew his application, applied on the 15th of April, he withdrew the application, he applied again, and then he was moved. But was approval granted by the CSC at the time of him being moved, or do you do it where, what is the explanation for that?
Mr. Bijleveld can answer that
Yes.
question.
Honourable Member, that was at the night of the 30th, and that approval was sent via WhatsApp to the controller that was responsible that night as person on standby, and he replied back on WhatsApp to the duty director that he can go ahead.
So that's a point of dispute between you and DCS, I presume. I'm just trying to understand the perimeter security at the night, because now somehow Bester got out. Was that fully operational? What type of security? Do you have cameras? How would, and I understand for many months you thought that Bester had passed away, but he escaped somehow. Now, was the perimeter security operating fully that night that you're aware, besides the cameras that went down, the perimeter?
There's no reports that could have been obtained during the investigation that prove otherwise, as only those cameras. And that's the reason why we acted against the 3 employees that was responsible for the perimeter, which is Sonoy and the 2 people in the CCR. Honourable Member.
I'm trying to understand, besides the cameras, but surely you have other perimeter security as well, besides just the cameras. Because one of the allegations of DCS is that the contractor failed to monitor perimeter security, which led to the aided escape.
We've got other systems in place on the perimeters, but that was not reported, and it didn't come out in our own investigation.
Was
that
it
was
all
full.
operating that evening?
That was fully operating that evening, according to all the investigation information that we could have obtained.
So there are a number of allegations, and I do appreciate that these are from the DCS's perspective. But what I find difficult to understand as well is how a cell 35, the fire could have started in that cell. And we asked this question earlier, and we were advised that there's no smoke detectors and that you rely on human warning for smoke, for fire. Surely that is a great deficiency. Is there any explanation as to how an accelerant arrived in that cell, 35?
Unfortunately, that could not have been determined. without, currently, one can say in hindsight, without the information of Bester, where this came from. The person that was that night on duty, Sonoy, is already been dismissed. In that investigation, it could not be obtained specifically how that accelerant came into the center.
And then just lastly, I know, Chair, I'm running out of time, but that issue about the desk or the TV cabinet. Meneer Bijleveld, you spoke about it. Was it a TV cabinet?
It's a TV cabinet, a standing TV cabinet with drawers here.
That has been standing there, that came in and has been standing there since the incident, and it is now in the possession of the police. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was in our possession up until the weekend when the SAPS came to do a forensic investigation, and in accordance, I wasn't at the center, but I was informed that the cabinet has been taken away by the SAP.
Thank you, Chair. I just concluding, and I think you've made a number of concessions during our questioning, that this was a very carefully planned operation with the cooperation of a number of wardens that is being further investigated. But I think had GCS taken greater care from the word go, or maybe a month or two subsequently, this whole incident would have come to light a lot earlier, and that it was damage into your reputation and damage into your finances that one could conclude resulted in you maybe not being as forthcoming with the information as you could have been. And it is only as a result of journalists that have investigated this that it has now come to light, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude. So we just wanted to express that, Chair. So that'll be all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. Honorable Horn, you have 15 minutes. The other 15 minutes was taken by... Yes. Oh, no, I thought you did not raise your hand. Honorable Verman Drogen.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not, well, good afternoon, first of all, to everyone. I'm not going to go back to my own questions, but I do have some follow-ups of what other members have asked, which I wanted clarity to understand better. Firstly, I wanted to know who is the current controller there right now. Is it the same controller that was there during the time of the fire?
Honourable Member, the controller that is currently on site is not the controller that was there during the incident.
So the one that was there during the time of the incident, where is the controller, that controller right now?
Honourable Member, from the discussion or the information that was shared with me and the National Commissioner is that they will be suspended from MCC. I'm not sure currently where they are.
Okay, so they will be, you said they will be, right? Okay, then secondly, you said 17, you've got 17 single cells. Now, I just want to understand why was cell 35 specifically allocated to Bester during that time, and are the 17 that you have normally full?
Honourable Member, can I just rectify that it's not 17, it's 70. 70.
Okay, 70, yes. And are all of them normally filled, singly?
I can't confirm that out of my head, if everyone was filled at that night. There is sometimes that it's filled and there's sometimes that it's not filled.
Okay, the reason why I'm specifically asking that is because Bester was specifically taken to a cell close to an emergency exit, so that is why I'm asking if during that time all of them were full, but be that as it may. Then, just with regards to jigs, this is an unnatural death. So whether it was a suicide or whether it was by fire, whatever the case may be, it was unnatural. But Jigs was only informed 6 days later. Now, I'd like to know why it took some time before Jigs was notified specifically that this was an unnatural death that occurred.
Honourable Member, to answer that question is that we report to the controller. The controller on site is the reporting line to the National Commissioner's Office as well as to the JIC's office. And therefore, I cannot say why it was only reported 6 days later. It was immediately on the same day reported to the controller's office.
So you yourself do not know why it wasn't immediately reported to Jigs, even though, as you said, all the while that you have a good ongoing relationship with Jigs themselves?
We do have a good relationship with JICs, but I can unfortunately not say why it was only reported on the 6th.
Okay. Honourable Swart asked the question of when Bester first entered the prison, and you said it was around 2013. Now, does that mean that the customary wife was already there in 2013, noted as the next of kin? Because you said that his personal possessions when he entered was given to the next of kin. When he was, you know, the things that he handed over when he was entered into the center. So was the customary wife already there, noted as the next of kin?
Honourable Member, just a correction, I've indicated that the uncle was the next of kin on his reporting, but we could not obtain contact with the uncle, so that's why we've obtained contact with Dr. Ndipa.
But was it in when was it that you couldn't find the uncle?
That was to inform the person of, as at that point in time, they reported by the death certificate the death of Inmate Bester.
Okay, no. So I'm not talking about the time of his death, right? Because I'm talking about the time that he came in 2013. You said that the things he brought into prison, was that then already given to the next of kin at that time? So I'm asking, that's why I'm asking if the customary wife was recorded as the next of kin.
Now, a correction again. The stuff that was handed over to the next of kin was after the so-called inmate death of Bester. And that was, I remember my colleague indicated that there was 2 sets, the one set that came from the cell, that all was handed to the SAPS, and then the rest that was kept in the admission store, where inmate belongings are kept, which is not allowed with them, that was handed to the Dr. Ndipa.
Okay, one more last question, Chair, or last thing. I wanted to get back to the laptop, because like I think it was Honourable Jele who said, you know, we saw on TV, for example, last week, that he was chasing women on Facebook, and he lured women on Facebook. So, which then means that he's a social media expert, obviously. doesn't matter what you say, that he was registered to study, I still cannot see the connection or get the understanding how a person who lured women to become his victims on Facebook using a cell phone or a laptop, why was he given a device that enabled him to, have meetings, have international meetings, maybe to lure women while he was in prison, for all we know, because you do not know what he did with that laptop. So I just wanted to understand why he was given a device that could enable him to still lure women on Facebook. Yes, you said there's a court case, etc., but if he used Facebook to lure women, and women have been hurt, families of the victims have been hurt, you still give him a device. Authorized, unauthorized, it doesn't matter, both. I just want to know why that was done.
Honorable Member, when we approved the issue of the laptop, our objective was to ensure that the inmate is also being rehabilitated. And I also want to indicate that we don't treat inmates differently based on the crimes that they have committed at MCC. All inmates that are incarcerated in that center, we see them as human beings and we try our level best to treat them according to what they are entitled to. Our objective has never been to promote whatever wrong things that Bester has done with the woman when he was committing the crime. Our sole objective was to ensure that he do get rehabilitation, and we committed ourselves to provide whatever tools that he was entitled to as per the court ruling that we have referred to.
I hope that you understand and you are aware that the people of South Africa is watching this hearing meeting or that we are having, and the women of South Africa who are affected by him are hearing what you're saying, that it doesn't matter what his crime was, we gave him a device to continue doing what he was doing. I think you as G4S, I would have expected that it doesn't matter what the crime was, it doesn't matter how the crime was committed, making sure that if a person is in prison, the people outside are safe. But I think I can see that this has failed. And I'm very sorry to say this, Chair, because they haven't investigated, or if they're still going to investigate. I think there's a lot of things that people have been telling us up to now. I think the risk and audit here really failed the women of South Africa. Thank you, that's all, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nevort Tuchen. Honorable Hon, 15 minutes, not 30, 15.
Yes, no, thank you, Chair. I'm well aware of the expropriation that took place. Without compensation, and not even from an ANC member. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on the answer to the... No, that's fine, sorry. I just want to pick up on a question or an answer to a question asked by the Honourable Nivo Drachen just now. Is it do you confirm that as we sit here today, you're not aware whether all 70 of the single cells was in use on the night of the incident?
I will be gossiping if I agree to that.
Yeah. So the question is then, I mean, a lot has been said about your own investigation focusing on systems and possible failure of your personnel and the possible involvement of your staff in this grand scheme. Wouldn't you agree that it's critical, given the strategic situation of Cell 35, to determine as part of an investigation whether Cell 35 was the only option left or was chosen?
That was addressed and it was confirmed by person in charge of Broadway on the specific day of the 30th, that there was no reason, that was the empty cell, and that's why he placed inmate Bestie in that cell.
Yeah, but I would think for the investigation to be complete, one must ascertain whether that was the only empty cell. But let me move on. Was it then, as the investigation intensified, was it from your side double-checked with the inmate who cancelled his request to be kept in isolation, whether that was indeed done voluntarily?
No, it was not ascertained.
So even though you say, as things unfolded and as SAPS leveled this up from suicide to murder, and as other entities ramped up their investigations, there's clearly still big loopholes in terms of your focus, which you say is only on looking into your own systems.
We had a look at the documentation available on the inmate that requested to leave the cell, and there was no indications that he was forced or that he was indicated to, for one or other reason, to complete the document to say he wants to leave that cell. If he was removed within the center, it would have, in the unit itself, it would have most probably raised alarms, but the fact that he requested to go back to normal population did not raise any alarms.
So how would you see coercion or intimidation based on a document? You say from the document itself there was no indication that it was not voluntary.
In hindsight, one can look at this and ask a number of questions during the investigation when it was conducted to look at the actions of the employees that was involved that didn't become evident and didn't need at that point in time, to me as the investigator, any further action on that specific town.
Okay. Let me move on to the approval of applications to be placed in isolation. Is there a document that must be filled in order for this to be finalized?
That's correct, Honorable Member.
And how often does it happen that this document is not used, but yet somebody is placed in isolation?
Honorable Member, according to my knowledge, I haven't experienced such, because after the inmate has applied, we take that documentation, we give it to the controller's office, where they will capture the information on their computer system and then the printout that we get and put it on the door. So I haven't come across a case where the inmate was kept in the single cell without paperwork.
So they,
Honorable Member, if you allow me just to explain a little bit further. Once we consider that the center is on a daily monitoring by the Department of Correctional Services Controller and Deputy Controller, and these two people from JICS, ICCV visitors on a daily basis at the center during weeks, and they are regularly monitoring the Broadway section to ensure that it's not misused.
okay. But on your own version then, there was no consent from DCS to move Thabo Bester to isolation.
Honorable Member, our version is that there was an approval. That is the approval we are referring to when you talk about the WhatsApp message that was there between the duty director as well as the controller that was on standby that evening.
But you just now said that there's a form involved, and according to your understanding of how processes are adhered to within the center, the form is always used.
That's correct, Honorable Member, because before the duty director contacts the controller that is on standby, he or she will have been informed by the application from the inmate. That's why the duty director will call the controller that is on standby and say, I'm sitting here with the form where the inmate is requesting to be kept in single cells.
Okay, and WhatsApp is of course something that's backed up and which one then can extract from to a text level from cellular phones and databases. Have you, as part of your investigation, verified the existence of that WhatsApp?
Yes, it's correct. It's available.
Will you then provide that to us?
We will provide it.
Thank you. I move on to the role of the controller and the deputy controller. In a typical annual year, how many observation notices, or I think as DCS calls it, citations, are issued by the controllers in the controller office at MCC?
Since the incident, we've received 3 notices from the Office of the Controller. The one was with regard to a psychologist that has resigned, and the document did not reach the controller within 72 hours, according to his interpretation. The second one was an escape from the hospital on the outside, which was discussed earlier. And then the last one was the vehicle that went in with a gate pass. That's the 3 that was received.
And let's say before the incident, how many typically in a year?
The previous year, there was also 3 issued.
Okay. And is it so that towards the end of the tenure of the previous National Commissioner of Correctional Services, G4S complained to the previous National Commissioner that they were inundated with violation notices by the then Deputy Controller who acted as the Controller?
I've got no knowledge of that. I can't comment on that.
Were you there at the time?
I'm at the center for 22 years. Yes, Honorable Member.
So, can you confirm whether the previous National Commissioner visited the center just before his contract came to an end?
Honorable Member, if I understand your question, are you referring to Mr. Fraser?
Yes.
Yes, I can confirm that on his last day, because I'm the one that welcomed him with the team. He did visit the center.
So on his very last day in office, he visited the center.
That's correct, Honorable Member.
And is it correct to say that the Deputy Controller, because I understand there was at that stage not a Controller, was subsequently then moved by DCS in a lateral manner without a disciplinary hearing?
Honorable Member, I really cannot confirm on that.
But you were there. Surely you know whether the Controller was replaced, the Deputy Controller, after Mr. Fraser's visit.
Yes, I do know, Honorable Member, but the reasons that informed that decisions
Okay.
were not shared with
But
me.
you confirm after that visit there was a new Controller and Deputy Controller in place?
That's correct, Honorable Member,
Okay.
because I know that the former controller has gone on pension and the post was advertised because I saw the advert.
Okay.
And I took it for that the newly appointed controller went through this application process, but I can really not commit myself to that. That's my assumption.
And was it that Deputy Controller and new Controller and the Deputy Controller who came there after the visit of Mr. Fraser was still in office at the time of the incident?
That's correct, Honorable Member.
Okay. Let me move on to the hospital. I understand, I'm from Bloemfontein, and many people say the private hospital there is better than the private hospitals. Those who can afford private medical health care can visit within the city. So is it correct that it is in fact a state-of-the-art facility?
That is correct, Honorable.
Okay. And is there sometimes an eventuality where inmates, despite the state-of-the-art facility, is taken to other hospitals, private or public, within the city for treatment?
That's correct, Honorable Member.
Okay, and Thabo Bester, was he one who was afforded visits to other hospitals?
During the investigation, it was something that I've had a specific look at. In 2015, he went 5 times to outside specialists in hospital, and 2016, 1 time.
Okay, and
5 minutes.
thank you, Chair. You see, I should really not have been expropriated. And as part of your investigation, then, did you look into what was the type of treatment? Did it necessitate visits to private hospitals?
No, because I didn't link it to the incident at that point in time.
Okay. Dr. Nandipa, in terms of your investigation, how often did she visit?
She visited regularly until November last year. The year before, sorry. The incident is more than a year ago.
And if you say regularly, how often was that?
I don't want to commit. I will rather send the document to the committee as well, where all the visits has been recorded.
Okay, and when did she start visiting?
I don't want to commit myself, but I think it was in 2017.
2017. So I would assume, and then I know I'm going into terrain which will most probably end in a wall, that as part of your intelligence activities at G4S, you have a careful look at visits to inmates. Frequency, new visitors, specifically also visits that do stop. Is that correct?
I need to answer that on behalf of the people at the center. I'm not directly responsible for that, but according to my knowledge, yes, visits are monitored carefully and stopped whenever there is reasons to stop it, which is legal, and not just stop because of the nature of stop.
May inmates be favored with, let's say, gifts or provisions or items they may need which fall within the protocol by visitors?
Honourable Member, we during the training of our employees, we've got a module that we call the improper dealing. In that module, we have listed all instances that can lead to irregularities by the employees. And one of those things is that we do not approve that employees must have wrong dealings with the inmates. So we did not approve that if it happened.
Okay. Then lastly, Chair, in terms of your protocols, and I'm not talking human beings, I'm talking your systems, which you, I think, were at pains today to say that that was the primary focus of your investigation. What has been amended and specifically strengthened based on your investigation?
Honourable Member, there was the door that's giving access to the system at the back where the areas are now being restricted. It's only now for the personnel of Integratron. No employee of G4S are allowed in there, and the key is also now being managed in accordance with that, so that nobody else has access to that. We've requested the service provider to install an intelligent lock on the door, so that you've got biometric readers available whenever, whoever enters that, so that you have that available to ensure that there is not possibility of tampering with the security system in future.
Thank you very much, Honorable Horn. Honorable Janji.
No, thank you, Chair. The advantage of being last or so is that you would have been covered by everybody. And so it gives me a free license to just do follow-ups, Chair. And maybe the first thing to do was just to make a brief comment, Chair, so that you know where my headspace is. I think for us, one is not interested in Thabo Bester or G4S for that matter. Our interest has to be about how we fix the system that we have in our institutions. If you take a mental patient to Falkenberg, your interest is not about differentiating these patients. It's about when you take them there, is that system going to take care of that patient? That for me is the issue. And so, Mr. Groenewald, this is a law that has rules. This is a country that has rules. I want to take you back to page 2 of your input. Because part of what we want to do here, we want to use the opportunity that we get out of this crisis to be able to see what are the operation failures and lapses, Chair, as well as what are those policy failures so that we're able to fix. It is about us fixing our country and these institutions. And so we expect you, since you have taken an oath, to help us do that by telling the truth. And I want to make this point, Chair, that G4S is an international company. Am I right? You also operate in the UK and other areas. And you've had these challenges in the UK. So when you go and appear in Parliament there, do you ask for summons when you go to that Parliament? You don't. Do you?
Honourable Chair, I don't know what the what the system is for appearing in front of this type of committee in the UK.
We've made that research. You don't look for summons. You appear because that's a parliament of that country, that everybody goes there. This is a portfolio committee of the parliament of this country. You come here because this statement, Chair, says if you continued last week, it would have been unlawful because we don't operate on summons. Summon is the last thing that you attend to. And I think it's important that we make that point. Because tomorrow we're going to ask somebody else to come and account to this body. This is the legislature of this country. I want us to bury that issue, Chair, because it does not sit well with me. I still don't understand why you wanted a summon. And then the next point, Chair, that I want to go into, Mr. Bielefeld, you are responsible for audit and risk as a director.
Correct, Honourable Member.
You also mentioned that contract is one of the issues that you are responsible for. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I want to go straight into the contract that you have with DCS. You do have a contract with DCS? This 20-something years contract?
There's a contract with Department of Correctional Services.
Thank
yes.
you. So just tell me, who's the consortium and who are the shareholders of 4GS?
Bloemfontein Correctional contract is the main contractor. The shareholders is 20% is held by Old Mutual, 20% by G4S, 20% by Fikile Projects, 20% by 10 Alliance.
Okay. In your own view, because the three of you are holding different positions, those two sitting there are more operational, and yours is away from the operations. But I was very curious how you were answering operational matters. I've been watching that space. And when answers are thrown, they start looking at you when it is operational matter, and you venture into it, and I'll bring some of those. Still with you, Mr. Bielefeld. So, with everything else that has happened. Because from where I'm sitting, Chair, the escape of Mr. Bester is not the start of the rot in that prison. The problem don't start with the escape. It does seem that there have been problems throughout. The escape is just a culmination of issues. And maybe just before I forget, that's the only thing I'm going to ask, one or two about Mr. Bester. And I'll ask all three of you. Mr. Groenewald, where is Mr. Bester? Where is Thabo Bester?
Honourable Member, I learned from the news that he was arrested by the authorities in near Arusha in Dar es Salaam. Other than that, I have no further information.
In your presentation here today under oath, you told us Thabo Bester has died. So I'm repeating the question to you. Where is Thabo Bester? Mr. Groenewald.
Honourable Member, I think the presentation needs to be put into context. What we did say was on the 3rd of May, a body was discovered in cell 35. We received a notice of death and a death certificate for Thabo Bester relating to that body. It's
Thank you.
only, so that's the information we had at hand. I appreciate that today we're looking back with 2020 vision. That's the information we had up to that point. On the 25th of May, we were informed by SAPS that it is not a suicide. This person died from blunt force trauma, and there was no smoke in the trachea, if I recall. That was the
Yeah,
finding.
you can pause there because part of your report, you have not believed what you have been told by the other stakeholders. Mr. Bielefeld, where is Thabo Bester?
I think my colleague has indicated that according to the information that we have, he's now arrested.
And today, this morning, you said Thabo Bester has died. So which one must I take?
My colleague has explained.
I'm asking Mr. Bielefeld, not your colleague.
I've indicated that my colleague has explained that the way that the presentation was done is on the information that we had during the investigation, and that the escape was only reported to us later in the beginning of this year.
Mr. Minyat, two questions to you. The first one is, when all of this happened, who was the Mangaung Correctional Center Director? Was it you?
Yes, Honourable Member, it was still me.
Everything happened under you.
That's correct.
You are still the director there.
Not current as we talk.
Have you been dismissed?
No,
Why?
no, I did not commit any misconduct.
When everything else happened under you.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Let me proceed, Chair. Just to be quick, so that we don't assume things here. These reports are not secret reports, so I just want you to indicate both the Bloemfontein High Court judge and the Constitutional Court judge. Who are these two judges? They are not named here, because these judges do this work. They share their work with us. We follow it as portfolio committee. I don't know why they are not mentioned. Who are these two judges? Because you are mentioning these judges in order to lift up what they would have seen, not the totality of things. Because this is not the report of the judges. You're taking out a code which seems to be suiting you, this code by these judges. We're not going to end here, we're going to follow these things. So who are these two judges? Quick.
The Concord judge is Judge Tron, and the judges that visited the center was Judge Van Rijn and Denisu.
Thank you. Should have been in the report and not to be asked. My next point, Chair, I would have spoken about the systems, that this is what we're interested in. And I've listened almost the entire day. So here's the issue. And Honorable Horn has come very close to that. In this center, and this is a heads up to DCS, because we're going to have to deal with this thing with them as well. do you have a risk assessment that you do of the inmates when they raise these issues? Let me start there first. Do you do risk assessments? When an inmate says, I don't feel safe here, is there a process where somebody assesses what this inmate says? Or you just do what the inmate says as you did what Thabo Bester said to you, and I'll come to that point about him being transferred. That's the first question. Do you do assessment? Imagine a situation, maybe let me not proceed, let me answer that question first. And I'm referring to both of you about operations, not Mr. Groenewald. He would not know these things.
Honorable Member, we don't do a recorded assessment, because if you were to ask me the records, I will not be able to give you
Okay,
any
what
records.
assessment do you do? So it's not a recorded, what assessment do you do?
If, for an example, the inmate has disclosed in his application, and then our security department will have followed that information. But because why I'm quoting this, because some of the applications, the inmate will say, no, I don't want to disclose.
So if you have a situation, Chair, in St. Albans, 20 inmates come to you, all of them say we're at risk in that cell, or in the Mangaung Correctional Center, how do you move on that? Because you seem to be agreeing once an inmate says that, it must be done.
Honourable Member,
And any of you are free to anyone to respond. Don't even look at each other.
the Correctional Services Act, Section 30, determines that an inmate may apply to be kept in own safety, and that's what we apply.
No, but the act would not go into how you design that system. It's about operations. The act is not an operational matter. You based on that act, you need to then build a system as to how you are going to effect what the act says. You don't have to generate it if it doesn't exist. All you can say is that you don't do this risk assessment. You hear what the inmate says, and then you proceed along those way, and as you did with Thabo Bester. Am I correct in that understanding?
You are correct, Honorable Member.
Okay. Now here's the thing. In the Mangaung Correctional Center, before Thabo Bester, how many inmates would have asked for this transfer?
Honestly, Honorable Member, I would not have it in my mind to say exactly
No,
how
I
many.
don't want it to be in your mind. Do you have it on record?
Yes, we'll definitely have a register in that single cell building.
Can we get it tomorrow, boss? Is information available?
Yeah, I will contact the center and check whether can they send it for
Okay,
tomorrow.
we'll be here tomorrow. And the colleagues have also followed that up to understand, because with Thabo Bester, it looks like it was on the day. That inmate asked for this, it happened immediately. And is that the trend, how if you do it, even though you're going to send that information, that's how it happens there?
That's correct, Honorable Member.
Okay, wow. Maybe just also summarize on record, what are these actual threats that Thabo Bester said he is afraid of?
His document that he completed indicated, Honourable Member, that he is scared for his life because of the 26 gang and that he did not have money to pay them off.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to the next short issue, in your documents, and Honorable Velma raised this issue, you and I saw the inspecting judge not really agreeing. In this document, you say you informed Jigs 6 days later. On the 9th of May, that's when you said in your presentation, from the 3rd of May. Is that the standard? When there's an inmate that would have died, so Jigs gets informed a week later That's almost a week. Is that the standard? Mr. Bielefeld and Mr. Munyati?
Honorable Member, I think
You are in competition of being silent. It's fine.
Honorable Member, my colleagues have indicated that the responsibility to report, for example, this particular incident is with the controller's office, not necessarily with our office. Our duty is to report to the controller on site.
Okay. Back to systems, Chair. Do you keep a visitor's register and a footage in the Mangaung Correctional Center?
Honorable Member, the records of people that came to visit the inmate are kept because we are using electronic system, but for the footage, we don't keep the footage.
Okay. Can we get the records of visitors that would have been there from the 14th of April to the 29th of April last year, tomorrow morning, when Mr. Bose is information available?
It will not be possible.
Why?
Information is only kept for 7 days, and if there's an incident, a backup is made of all the information regarding the incident. There's no record of every day being kept for the whole period of time, Honourable Member.
There's no record.
Honourable
And
Honourable Member, if I might just help my colleague with your...
go ahead, Mr. Groenewald.
The Honourable Member's question is not regarding the video footage that we retain only for 7 days. The question is around physical evidence of visitation to inmate Bester.
That is available. I was talking about the video footage that was referred to.
Can we get that tomorrow?
You can get it tomorrow.
And thank you. Does it happen that you would have this register, say for example, for a month, and that in this register there would have been a visitor who was not in the register? Has that ever happened in the Mangaung Correctional Center?
That was never reported to me, that somebody was there that was not registered in the register. There's actually different controls. The people that's doing the bookings for the visits is not the same people that's accepting the visitors and conducting the visit on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Groenewald and Mr. Bielefeld. It's about the contract itself. Have you picked up any red flags about this contract that you have between DCS and yourself?
Honourable Member, if you refer to red flags, can you be a bit more specific, please?
Okay, let me do it this way. If this committee asks DCS to terminate the contract with you, would that be a problem? Based on what has been presented to us, based on issues of performance, competence, maybe not this committee, those that are signing the contract.
Honourable Member, I think the correct thing would be for the performance to be judged against the obligations in the contract, and for a determination then to be made as to whether there are grounds for early termination or not.
What we have witnessed throughout the day today, not just listening to TV, not social media, from your own presentation, the questions posed to you is that as I'm sitting here, my first inclination when we get to DCS, they have got to tell us why they cannot terminate the contract. So can you assist us to indicate why would you have a difficulty with the contract being terminated when there's no performance on that contract? This issue, before you respond, it's a serious reputational risk, not to DCS, to the country South Africa. That's how serious we take it. Because these institutions will take people to those places who have wronged society, and they've got to be kept and looked after in a particular way. And what we've been hearing here is that you can have an inmate that really, and others are confirming, that really can have a party and a big thing whilst he's still in prison, in the cell, in the correctional center. You have indicated to Mr. Swart that you don't know about that. And it's mind-boggling. Don't want to go there. And so I'm going back to the issue of the contract. Why must we keep this contract?
Honourable Member, that's up to the parties to the contract to decide whether there are merits to this contract. We are discussing one event here, a major event, and I don't take anything away from that. But I think this event needs to be seen in perspective of 22 years of operation. That's not my decision, Honourable Member, to make. That is for the parties to the contract to make.
Would you, all three of you, agree that this contract does not deserve any further day to continue?
I would disagree with that, Honourable
Why?
Member. Because I think our performance, we're discussing a single event here, and as I said, I'm not taking anything away from the gravity of the event. Our track record over 22 years is a good track record, given if compared to other private and public facilities.
Okay, let me leave that, Chair. Back to both of you. Thabo Bester and his studies. What did he study? What did he register for? Forget now about a computer laptop, because a laptop was linked to his studies. What did he study for?
Graphic design, Honourable Member.
Incomplete principles of graphic design.
That's correct.
How long was that course? You can't say you don't know. How long was that graphic design course that Thabo Bester as an inmate registered for? That allowed him to have a laptop. Because the laptop has been explained here, that Thabo Bester was studying. And we've discovered now what you are studying. Principles of graphic design. How long was that?
Honourable Member, honestly, I don't know, but what I can do, I can find out from the institution the term of that course.
And that's your inmate.
That's correct, Honourable Member.
Now, here's information, so I want you to deny or confirm this, that this principles of graphic design, in terms of the schedule, he would have ended this in January 2021. January 2021. I don't know whether he passed or whatever, but that was the end of the course. So why would he have still had a laptop, okay, to do all of these kind of things? Please assist me. I'm already also assisting you to fill the gaps. Assist me too.
Honourable Member, from my side, I cannot answer that question. Once again, we will have to go back to the principal who deals with this to give us a proper answer on that. I don't want to guess and bring the committee under a wrong perception of what might be the case.
Okay, thank you. We are going to interact with SAPS. And maybe before I make that point, Mr. Groenewald, do you blame SAPS? And let me explain this. The tone of your presentation here today and everything else you have said, there's a grief about SAPS.
5 minutes.
Thank you. Do you blame SAPS?
Honourable Chair, there's no grief about SAPS, and I certainly don't blame SAPS. My presentation and the facts that we've tabled to this committee is to factually record what happened and to explain to the committee that there were 3 concurrent investigations running. SAPS was dealing with a forensic investigation, as I've explained, and SAPS set the pace of that investigation. At certain times, they didn't want to make certain information available to us. I'm not sure why that decision was taken. When they asked for information from us, 1st of June 2022, we submitted all information to them. And as you heard from my colleague, Mr. Bijleveld, earlier today, there was, has been, and still exists, I believe, a very good working relationship regarding this matter between ourselves and SAPS. I certainly don't blame them.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. The crime scene at the cell where the body will soon know where that person was burnt, because we now know it was not Thabo Pester. Did you clean that scene before the police arrive?
According to the information at my that I've got, that cell was cleaned after the SAP has released the cell, after the body of the person that was in there was removed.
Okay. Well, we will find that out, because just listening in on the court proceedings, the charges are quite serious. Aiding, abetting, but more seriously, defeating the ends of justice is one other charge that is there, but we'll hear that. We're not there yet. I want you to confirm this. You've made this point quite earlier and very emphatically. The issue of smoke detectors. And I want to walk slowly with me. Are you saying there are no smoke detectors there? Or are you saying they don't work?
Honorable Member, there are no smoke detectors in Broadway.
They don't exist.
They don't exist.
And if we do find that there are smoke detectors,
Honorable Member, it will really be a shock for me, because I have never seen this smoke detectors in single cells.
okay. Wow. Chair, thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Janche. Just a few things. One, since you gave us your presentation today, we did not have an opportunity to go through your presentation. Can you assist us, which part of your presentations are a contravention of the law or contract? Or contract? Because you said one of the reasons you wanted to be summoned is because there are things that you did not want to violate contractual obligation or legal obligation. So now, based on what you have presented, which parts are a contravention of the law or contract?
Honourable Chair, if I may answer that, and it's a very important point that I made this morning. We did not seek privilege to get immunity. We did not seek privilege because we were fearful that we would come here.
Can you come close to the mic?
We were not fearful that we would come here and say anything that would incriminate ourselves, and for that reason we wanted immunity. That was not the case. In terms of the Correctional Services Act, we are prevented from speaking to any third party without consent. And for that reason, we could not come here without a summons that allows us to speak freely here without that consent, knowing that what we say here will go into the public domain. Secondly, in terms of the contract between MCC and BCC, and between BCC and the department, we are precluded contractually from speaking to third parties. All information pertaining to the operations of the Mangaung facility has to be communicated through the Department of Correctional Services. And we would have breached that legal obligation on us had we appeared here without the summons. And for that reason, and I believe it should be seen in a positive way, we sought to get a summons so that we could appear here without breaking the law. It's a very important point I need to make. Had we appeared without that summons, we would have contravened the Correctional Services Act. We would have contravened the contract that we have with the department.
No, we will come back to that maybe even tomorrow, because you will not be excused until this process is over. We will come back to that. And then would you agree with me that a financial crime was committed in a prison that is under your control?
Honourable Chair, I have no evidence of a financial crime. What we know today, with the benefit of hindsight, is that inmate Bester escaped from Mangaung Correctional Centre, but I have no evidence of a financial crime having been committed.
It's even possible that with the lapses in your system, that people could easily commit or plan a terrorist attacks because your systems cannot detect those things.
Honourable Chair, I think it would be irresponsible of me to speculate on what is possible. I can only go on the facts that are available to me of what actually happened and the actions that we actually took. Moving beyond that would be speculation on my part. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
Thank you very much. I think we are done for now. I think we are done. I think it's important that we must hear the next presentation. They will not be excused. Should there be a need to come back to them, we will do that. Babukhoza, siyacela. Siyacela, yes. So we will release you for now from sitting there, but you are not released from these proceedings. You are not excused. It's highly possible that in the course of our interaction with other people, we might want one or two things to be clarified, so you must be around. Can we have, is tea ready? Yes, can we have a 10 minutes break and then Integratron, then we'll take the seat. Can we start? Yeah. Now we will be receiving a presentation from Integratron, but before they do that, I will hand over to the legal advisor to administer oath.
You have been invited, subject to the provisions of Section 16 of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 44 of 2004, to appear before this committee as a witness and to answer questions in respect of the committee's oversight meeting into the circumstances relating to the escape of Mr. Thabo from the Mangaung Correctional Center and related matters. Please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or damages. You are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or committee may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Please be aware that in terms of Section 17(2) of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, a person who willfully furnishes a House or committee with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offense and is liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years. Could you kindly state your full name and designation for the record, please?
Letitia Pedro, a director of Integratron.
Thanks, Ms. Letitia Pedro. You're required to take an oath or affirm that the evidence you're about to give is truthful. You may choose to take the oath or the affirmation. Which do you prefer?
An oath, please.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear that the evidence I shall give
I swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Chair, the witness is duly sworn in. Sir, please state your full name and designation, please, for the record.
Dylan Williams, Internal Legal Advisor for Integratron.
Thanks, Mr. Dylan Williams. You're required to take an oath or affirm that the evidence you're about to give is truthful. You may choose to take the oath or the affirmation. Which do you prefer?
The oath, please.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear that the evidence I shall give
I swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Chair, the witness is duly sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You can now make your presentation.
Honorable Chair, honorable committee members, good afternoon. We have not specifically done a presentation which will be posted. However, we have... Sorry, can you guys hear me? Is that better? All right. We have, however, furnished the Honourable Committee and the Committee Secretariat with affidavits, which I believe you are in possession of. If we may briefly run you through that, we know that time is, of the utmost importance. So without detracting from the severity of the matter, we would like to run you through the contents of our affidavit, which my colleague has deposed to. So, seen in light of the recent developments and media publicity which has come to light, we received a notice from the Department of Correctional Services on the 22nd of March 2023, requesting certain information which could aid the Department of Correctional Services and, of course, the committee in the investigations. I wish to place on record, or at the outset, that it should be noted that Integratron was merely contracted by G4S to provide qualified technical resources in order to maintain the security installation for G4S at the Mangaung Correctional Services. With that being said, the management of the system is done by G4S. Integratron is not contracted to manage the system, rather maintain the system. My apologies. Further to that, excluded from our scope of works is the maintenance of the security installation, which excludes ICT infrastructure, which is the information and community technology infrastructure, and the power or electrical installations, including backup power. In accordance with the notice received, as alluded to earlier, on the 22nd of March 2023, as mentioned, certain information was requested from our officers. Amongst that information was information regarding the cell call buttons, the cameras, the respective DVR recordings, and the SCADA logs for cell calls, as will be noted from the affidavit. It should also be noted that it is a daily function that the Integratron integrated solution technician on duty for maintenance is required to check the equipment in the equipment room prior to leaving site. With that being said, footage available confirms that the respective technician on the morning, or rather on the 2nd of May 2022, entered the equipment room expected at close of shift on the evening of the 2nd, on or about 1938. Recordings on the DVR ceased shortly after, according to the DVR logs and time displayed on footage. In light of the recent news headlines regarding the incident, what was thought to be a suicide is now being investigated as a murder. Based on this new information, we undertook to initiate our internal investigations and subjected this said individual to a said polygraph test. As alluded to by the Honourable Committee Member, Mr. Swartz, earlier, the results of the said polygraph test came back negative. We have today received information that this individual has subsequently handed himself over to the SAPS, and I believe that they are conducting their further investigations. Further to this, there were 4 individuals from Integratron Integrated Solutions who arrived on site on the 4th of May 2022 to conduct their respective investigations into what had transpired and the subsequent escape of Thabo Bester. These individuals who were on site on the day conducted their respective investigations, and it was found that all the systems were operational and everything was in working order. With that being said, when the DVR systems went off at 1938, they only appeared the following morning at 4:11. During that period is when the incident occurred. And that is all I wish to state.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Ms. Ramulubeng, Ms. Jele, Ms. Yako, Honorable Ngola, Honorable Nivot Drochen, Honorable Swart, Honorable Engelberg, Honorable Yes, no, it's glitch. Honorable Glenis, in that order. Oh, Honorable Horn, then Honorable Himadota. Honorable Judge. Yeah, I know, it's long in the night. Over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. And we welcome the presentation, even though it's not flagged. Chair, who has resigned from the Integratron? Is it Van Tonder, or maybe I got the name wrong?
That's correct.
It is. What was the reasons for him to resign?
He had other opportunities lined up for him as per his resignation.
Could you
Um,
speak a bit
We
louder?
can't hear you.
My apologies. He had other opportunities lined up for him as per his resignation.
When was the
So-
resignation?
In August last year, 3rd of August.
When did you start conducting investigation?
We started the investigations on the 4th of May, so he was part of the investigation team.
4th of May 2022,
That's correct.
and then he resigns in August. There's nothing on him.
Well, we can't really look into him. At the time, we didn't have any reason
Did you try to look into him?
At the time, we did not have any reason to.
In this time, did you try to look into him?
He's out of our employ, so
The guy that did the polygraphy test, it's cited in one of your, there are a lot of affidavits here. In one of the affidavits, or the person that was conducting the polygraphy test, that somewhere his answers were evasive or not conclusive. And you got that report. What is it that you have done? Since I've recently read that you still kept him, regardless of that. Even though the polygraphy test would have said negative, but there is a remark on it.
So what we subsequently undertaken to do, we have subjected him to disciplinary hearings. We have suspended him. As earlier mentioned, he has now handed himself over to
When
SAP.
did you suspend him?
Speaking under correction, but in light of the recent public holidays, it would have been the following Tuesday. So we found this information out on the 31st of March. We undertook our internal meetings and we subjected him to disciplinary action on the 31st.
so he was suspended effectively 3rd of April.
31st of March 2023. When did you do the polygraphy test?
So the polygraph test was done on the 31st. Let me clarify. So that following Tuesday, upon receipt of this and taking into consideration the respective public holidays, his disciplinary was held on that Tuesday and he was suspended immediately.
Okay. On the basis of the missing footage between 1938 on the set day of the 3rd of May, or early hours of the 3rd of May, there's a missing footage between 1938 to 4 a.m. when it resumed recording. And you make an indication that it's on the basis of power cuts and so forth. You even mention dates and so forth. Is it possible that it might have emanated from being played with, and in this instance, someone tampering with it?
What I can say is the only logical conclusion that one can deduce based on this individual who was there during that time is that it may have been possible that he tampered with the system, with the cables, the DVR cables.
And are those, the server of that system behind the, is it Broadway?
It's basically in the control
Before us,
room.
what is it? Is it Broadway where the segregation, the isolation? It is Broadway. Is it behind Broadway? The serve of that system, where can you tamper with it?
I'm not able to answer that. I have no idea.
You are not aware of
I'm
it?
not aware of that.
And on the said official that was there, you make mention in page 2 that the daily technician who's responsible must make sure that before leaving on the said day, must make sure that all maintenance with regards to equipments prior leaving the site are correctly checked and functional and so forth. Did the said official do exactly as what you would have stated here?
It cannot with certainty say, I cannot with certainty say that he acted, with the utmost
Did you try
care and
to
skill.
find out?
What we can very well say is that the video footage, which is available, that we are not in possession of, given the serious nature thereof. However, it is in possession of the respective individuals at the Mangaung Correctional Service, as well as the investigating officers. The footage will show that an individual walks in at approximately 1938 towards the so-called room that I would take it, or the server room, the control room, which you're alluding to. Minutes after that, the system ceases to display any footage.
Okay, between me and all of us in this room, we can safely say it was tampered with.
I can't with certainty say it was, but if that's the deduction one wants to make, then yes.
One of the affidavits that was written, it makes an indication that the official eventually opened up on the said event and made an indication that eventually there was a plan from G4S officials that resulted in the escape of Bester and so forth and so on, to an extent that he was asked to play a role in switching off the cameras. Did we find out that eventually did he switch off the cameras?
Like I've mentioned earlier, he is now subsequently, in light of what has transpired and this information coming to light, handed himself over to SAPS.
Did we give this information to SAPS?
Excuse me, I have provided this information to the respective individuals at the Mangaung Correctional Center, as well as the Lieutenant Colonel, who we received the notice from.
So you have been cooperating with SAPS?
We have been cooperating with SARS over and above the information that has been requested from us.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jale.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My first question is that upon getting that contract, were you aware that there is a blind spot around in that area?
I cannot confirm. Unfortunately, the technicians, well, the guys with the technical knowledge, we can do, however, ask the question and just get a revert back on that.
Now that you know, how do you think you can assist the G4S to fix that?
We haven't gotten that far, but we are considering the events. We were not able to get to site and looking at an action plan to prevent any of this going forward happening. So,
did the G4S inform you about the occurrence of the switch off? And
Sorry, just repeat the question.
did the G4S contacted you or informed you? When did they inform you about the occurrence?
I can't with certainty say when we were informed. I'm speaking under correction, but we came there the day after the incident to conduct our investigations into the specific cameras, the DVR recordings, the SCADA logs, and the cell call buttons.
So no one informed you, you just came as a
No.
routine?
so we were informed, and I speak under correction, it's either the 3rd or the 4th that we were informed, but we were on site on the 4th. So it could have been the 3rd.
How many days?
If we were informed the 3rd, we were on site the next day.
Okay. My other question is that, would you say it's strange that that incident occurred? It's strange according to your own judgment, knowing that divisive because it's yours. You are the owner of that thing.
Which incident are you referring to?
I'm talking about the switching off and this within that time frame, because you are saying you went there those days and then the whole thing was in order, nothing was wrong with the machines. So I'm saying, would you say it's strange? I'm repeating the same question that was asked before because I didn't get the clear answer.
So certainly it's strange. One would presume that it isn't within standard protocol that that system would be switched off.
So would you say it was deliberate?
Like I said, it's definitely not within standard protocol.
Will you say it is deliberate according to your own observation?
I cannot say that it was deliberate. What I can say is that this respective individual has handed himself over to SAPS, who was involved on the day.
Were you informed, or maybe this question won't be right for you, because according to the observation that we did, that place where Cell C is, it's not clear. It's not clear, you know, when you are in control, in the control room, when the cameras, when the person who is there watching there, it is not clear. Hence, you can see that there is that blind spot, and also it's not clear. Were you aware? Because I think when you were inserting those things, you would have maybe did some work before and see if maybe this will be, it will help the situation as you were supposed to do for security.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question. Can you
saying-
please repeat it, Honorable?
We said it is the place where C35, it's not clear. It's when you are looking at that place, when you are in the control room, it is not clear, and there is a blind spot. And you were the one who inserted those cameras and the security in terms of the, but I'm saying, did you notice that advice? Because that place is very important, especially because it is next to the emergency door.
As I mentioned, I cannot confirm that was the fact, but I will revert, speak to the technicians on site, and they will be the best people to give a response on that. So we will revert tomorrow with a response on that specific question.
I saw your reaction on the issue of Mr. Venter. When you were asked that Mr. Venter is, can we get information from him? And then you said he's released. And then I saw you when Honorable Ramalubedi was asking you that, can we get information, something like that. And then you said, what was that meaning? It means you don't have any control, you will never assist in terms of that, in making sure that we get information from Mr. Venter, who is gone, who is released by you.
Oh, you mean Mr. Van Tonder?
Van Tonder, yes,
Yes.
not Venter.
No,
My
I will-
apologies for that.
By all means, I will try and get information, but as I mentioned, he's not under our employ. So hence, we've mentioned him in the report for SAPS to take this further if they see fit. But I do not mind if I'm in the means to request the information or to question him. We will do that by all means to try and assist with this investigation as we are doing.
Lastly, I want to confirm that the officials that are working there, you said you have nothing to do with them. Are you confirming that those officials who are operating that system are hired by G4S? You have nothing to do with them.
So we have our technicians, Integratron technicians, The officials working in the control room, that is DCS, and I speak under correction, DCS or G4S employees.
Thank you.
So we can only report on our staff, which is the Integratron technicians.
Sorry, Honourable Member, if I may just add to your previous question with regards to Mr. Van Tonder. At the time of the incident, Mr. Van Tonder did depose to affidavits which were provided to G4S.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jele. Honorable Yako.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Integratron says that its responsibility is maintenance, and G4S is responsible for managing the equipment. So upon your investigation on the 4th of May, did you then compile a report and have further talks with G4S prior to the involvement that you're in now this year with SAPS?
Yes, we have. We've compiled a report after the investigation, and it was submitted to G4S. It's one of the appendices. Let me just
May I ask
check
when
the
it was
number.
submitted?
It was submitted on the 12th of May, 2022.
The same month? Sure. And what responsibility did you take of the lack of functioning of the equipment?
So, as per our report, we made certain recommendations and conclusions based off the findings we found on the 4th with, like I say, certain recommendations to improve, enhance the system, and to ensure that a similar situation may not happen again.
Okay, and how many times has the system been off before?
I can't with certainty say. As my colleague alluded to earlier, the technical team may be able to shed more light on that.
Okay. Upon your discussions with G4S on, you compiled the report same time. What was the reaction from G4S with regards to your report on that 24th of May?
Maybe my colleague will be able to touch base on that.
Just repeat your question, please.
I'm asking what was the response from G4S upon your compiled report to them as to how this system manufactured and what was your role in it?
Well, after submitting the report to Mr. Johan at the time, we did not receive a response. But along with the report, and along with the recommendations, we've submitted quotations to get the system where it should be, with the desired working condition. But as I've just said, we have not received a response. Some of the recommendations and the quotations we've submitted, we've received purchase orders and we went ahead, but yet we're still waiting for some of the main implementations to be made.
So G4S never responded positively to your recommendations?
Upon submitting this report, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
We did, however, my colleague, which is not currently here, had a telephone call with Mr. Johan afterwards, but there was no further discussions around that.
Just one last question, Chair, with your indulgence. After that incident, and you recommended those protocol measures with G4S, and they didn't respond to you, have you ever been called again to come and do maintenance of the same systems?
Yes.
For the same thing?
Yeah. So
And you made
we're there
recommendations?
permanently every day, so we just do preventative maintenance on those pieces of equipment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Yako. Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much. Chairperson, I've got only one question. But before that, allow me to submit that the country is taken into a right here. Honorable Janji is correct that the last learning program and date of Mr. Balster is the 20th of January 2021. Then we are told here in this committee that on the 4th of April 2022, a laptop was found which was authorized to Mr. Bester for purposes of studying. A year later, after the end date of his studies. So the country is taken for a ride. Let me, in the affidavit you deposed, you give a scenario of what happened between 7 p.m. on the 2nd of April and 4 a.m. on the 2nd of May, and 4 a.m. on the 3rd of May. You give a scenario of a man who enters a room where the operating arrangement is kept. That the man enters the room at 7:38 p.m. But in your investigation, you pick that some DVRs stopped functioning at that particular time until 11 minutes past 4 on the 3rd of May 2022, which is immediately after the incident. But you equally explain to us, people who know less on the ICT profession, that usually when such malfunctions happen in the system, they directly report to the operators in the operating room. But none is said about that. Now, can you explain to us, just briefly, what are these DVRs we are talking about for a layman like me, and what is their role on record-keeping purposes? Thank you.
Letitia?
As I mentioned, I will just touch on this, but as I mentioned, I would need to get a technical response to this. So on the DVR, that is basically, it does the recording. So as we mentioned in the report, the DVR was still recording. The recording was available because the footage was available afterwards for that period of time. And immediately as he entered the control room, so the server room, excuse me, the recording was offline. And then the recording went back online the next morning after 4. Understand?
Chair, that is enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Integratron.
Thank you, Chair. Some questions for myself for clarity. I want to know, you were talking about your technicians. You said 4 of them. Do they take turns within a 24-hour service?
So, as I understand it, and speaking under correction, there was a technician there on the 2nd of May, 2022. The remaining technicians that I speak of were dispatched upon the incident happening. I am not entirely sure how many individuals are there on the said day.
So just clarification, the 4 technicians referred to in the report, they were assisting with the investigation. So 3 of them, well, 2 of them were dispatched from head office, and one of the senior techs assisted telephonically. Normally we have 3 guys on site, and they do take turns on the 24-hour standby.
Okay, so on 24-hour standby, right? So you have that. So when there is a switch off of your system, does nobody notified? Or didn't anybody know that the system was switched off?
So if you refer to the recommendations. Unfortunately, there was no heads up or indication that the system was offline or, well, did not record. That was one of our recommendations, for the system to alert the officials that the recording has stopped.
Because I'm not talking about the recommendations, I'm talking about the day of the fire, day that the fire happened. We are told the system was switched off, so I want to know from those of you, well, who are not in the control room, but outside, is nobody, I mean, if you are the director of the company, none of your staff picked up that the system was off? Nobody?
No. So he was the only one. He was about to knock off after 7 that evening. And as I mentioned, and again, in the report that was submitted to G4S, we made the recommendation that we should implement this in order for the superiors or the officials to be alert or notified when the system is not recording or the system is offline or the cameras are offline, etc.
Okay, so that's only in the recommendation. So on that day, nothing like that happened. So now, when was this report given with the recommendation? When was it given?
On the 12th of May, 2022.
So 12th of May 2022, and you said there was no response except the telephonic response. When was the telephonic response?
I cannot recall. My apologies, but I cannot.
But it was still in 2022?
Yes, it was.
So I'm asking because May 2022 up until today, 2023, you've had no response on the recommendations that you gave. I'm assuming you still have a contract with G4S?
Yes, we do have a contract. We are in talks with them, so there are emails, correspondence in terms of updating the quotes. So they are looking into upgrading the system or getting the necessary measures in place to avoid what happened. So they are looking into following their recommendations.
Okay, but there wasn't response for something to be implemented 1 year later or up until now, nothing to be implemented, no response with regards to something that needs to be implemented.
Well, there was, like I just mentioned, there was a telephone calls and the quotations were submitted, but nothing was finalized at the time.
Okay, so now with all of the load shedding, a lot of load shedding that's been happening, and G4S telling us that the electricity for that box failed, your investigation into why the electricity failed on that box, what does your investigation say about that?
Well, at the time, as per the report, it was a power failure, but that has been resolved up until now, as I'm aware that the UPSs has been installed.
Okay. I wanted to add to what my colleague said about the blind spot. I do not know when you first signed your contract with G4S, so you know, whether you've seen that area that there's no camera. Was there, you know, obviously you didn't see it before. Sorry, interpreter needed clarification. The blind spot there in that area at the cell, did you not see prior to the fire happening or the incident that there's a blind spot there so that you can put the camera there? Because like it was said, I mean, it was near an emergency exit. Did you not see that there was a need for a camera prior to the fire happening?
I will have to come back and on that one specifically. I will liaise with our technicians and revert.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nivot Tuchen. Honorable Swart.
Very much. I'm just trying to understand the affidavit, which we only received today, and some of the processes. So your job is the maintenance of security installation, which excludes the ICT infrastructure and the power, but you've got to make sure the cameras are operating, the recorder is operating. Is that correct? And
Sorry, that's correct.
at this time, we've spent the whole morning looking at this exact time when both the cameras were turned off from 1938 on the 2nd of May to 0411 on the 3rd of May. All the cameras were offline, plus the DVRs. That's correct. And you've got a screening of someone coming into the server room and turning off the camera, turning off the recorder. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So,
And
so I've
the
summarized
cameras-
that correctly. All the cameras are off?
No, the cameras was not off. The cameras was in working order. The only thing, it was only the DVR for that period that was not recording.
The DVRs were not recording at that.
That's between
Okay,
that
but
time
we know
frame.
that the cameras for that specific cell 35 were too far in the distance. So that is, the critical part is the DVRs. But I'm trying to understand this whole thing about your letter, which is first in May last year, where you indicate your initial report. I mean, we are living in 2022, and we're still dealing with cassette recorders and VHS tapes. It's beyond comprehension. Can you explain as a company how you make use of VHS tapes that are re-recorded and reused multiple times in this day and age of modern storage of information? I'm referring to 17 May 2022. You've got the duration of the recording system at G4S. The system uses video cassette recorders with VHS tapes. 2 tapes were used per day, 12 hours each, and reused multiple times. The tapes were removed from the CCR. What I'm trying to ascertain, firstly, the antiquity of the system, but secondly, the fact that 6 months later, we've got a challenge trying to get hold of tapes if they are reused, obviously.
That's correct. You'll note from our initial report on the 12th of May that those form part of the recommendations to improve and enhance the system.
Yes, and Mr. Dianchi correctly pointed out that one wants to enhance the system, but it's just a combination of coincidences and issues and that played into the hands of this escape. I'm trying to also understand this issue related to the cell call and door, which was also not operating. That is in your letter of the 12th of May, 2022. You've got a lot of very technical. Explain to me, what is the cell call and door? What is that process? And it's on page 2 of your letter to GCS. And there's another error. There's another error with that, with the SQL database. Can you follow that and just explain that to us? What is the cell call and door? Obviously, that would presume there are logs for cell call logs where a person calls from a cell or doors opened. It should be logged automatically, and there's a problem with that as well. So we can't ascertain at what time was that cell 45 door opened. Is that correct?
So I will refer, and it's numbered on page 17, and it is part of the report that was submitted to G4S. Please allow me just to read that section. Cell call and door. When investigating the SCADA logs for cell call logs and door status changes, Integratron noted that the historic data was not available in the Android SCADA database. Integratron contacted the third-party service provider for assistance. It was noted that the audit agent was not running. This agent logs all device status changes.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt you, what do you mean by, what device status changes? What does this mean? Is this doors opening and closing?
So this report was compiled by our technicians. What it basically is saying is that the Adroit SCADA system, which is the software, it needs to be, it's a very old version that's running, hence it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So, and hence we've recommended an upgrade of that system.
What does it
Again,
record,
sorry.
though? What data does it record?
The opening and the closing of the doors.
So it would,
But
the cell door, cell 45, what is it, cell 45? Cell 35, I'm getting confused myself. Cell 35 plus the emergency door through, which is just next to that. So that should be recorded, and again, was not recorded due to problems with a system. Is that correct?
I would like to confirm that with our technicians.
But you say it here. Displayed errors, and as a result, the connecting agent, such as the audit, had stopped. That's on the 12th of May, 2022. So there's another problem here. So where we could have thought, oh, here's a system at least that's been in place at great cost, we can now find out what time was the doors opened and what time was the emergency door opened. We've been there, we've seen. That's the place the escape took place. So here's another challenge that you're faced with. So you make wonderful recommendations. The failure is due to an unexpected error in SQL, resulting in the connection being suspended. And that means the data and the information relating to the opening of the cell door, the opening of the emergency door is not recorded. Is that correct? It's not rocket science there, you've said it. Is that correct?
I can't with certainty say.
Well, look, you don't have to say it with certainty. You've already said it in your letter. You're recommending an upgrade of the system. And here you say, it was noted the database displayed errors, and as a result, the connecting agents, such as the audit agent, had stopped. This is afterwards. So you're looking now, you want to find out, and that's just the one part. That's the opening on the doors. That's a great system, but it wasn't operating the same period. Another coincidence. So we'll leave it there. I'm trying to understand this issue of the power breaks now. You also make great mention about that. And I appreciate that's not your responsibility, the power outages. Of course, when your own technician goes and unplugs it, then it is your responsibility. Wouldn't you concede that? I mean, assuming, and all probabilities indicate, does everyone have access to the server room? Only your technicians have access to the server room, is that correct?
Excuse me. Yes, that is correct, but the server room at this moment is not.
I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about then.
No, so they were not the only ones.
I'm
So
sorry?
the controllers in the control room, they also would have access to the server room.
So it's either the controllers who are supposed to be sitting at their control room, but where is the, do you know, it's not the same place, as I understand.
No, it's like one room, and then you have the controllers.
Yes.
Viewing the screens, excuse me. And then there's a doorway, and that's the control room.
So on the assumption that your technician went in, you see that someone comes in and unplugs it, and that same person fails the polygraph test. There's a high probability that it was your technician. Do you not agree?
What we can say is that all evidence seems to suggest.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, my time is limited, but can I just ask on the power system? I'm intrigued about all the power breaks in your letter of 12th May, where the DVR logs, and this is your system operating, power outages, 14 April, 15 April, 16 April, 19 April, 28 April, 29 April. That is when the power outages were for the recorder. Correct, that's on 12th of May, your letter 12th of May, second last paragraph. You say, at those times, the recording was out. And you say the UPSs that supported the equipment in the event of power loss and protect the equipment are not operational. So in other words, there's no backup for all those dates, all those, whatever happened on those dates, there was no backup system, the DVR system did not work. Now, but I find it astonishing that you as a technical group come in and you're supposed to maintain the information, and yes, the power outages are not working, but all these dates, the power's out, so all your system is down. Do you not agree? Isn't it not astonishing? That's just for 1 month. Do you have data for the March, for January, February, March of that year? Can you provide that data for us as well? Because it will probably be the same thing.
So not that I'm aware of, but I can request that. And
Surely,
make it available if
you
it
as
is
maintaining the system would have brought this to the attention and say, look, it's not my problem, but our systems are being affected by the fact that the power is down, therefore our system is worth nothing. Do you not agree? Do you not agree?
Like I say, I can't answer to what the technical team has.
I'm sorry, what technical team are you referring to? Your own technical team.
That's correct.
But then who must? Director, please, Ms. Pedro, you respond on behalf of your technical team. You're indicating here severe breaches of power for the month of April. We have this massive incident on the 2nd of May, and now we're all wise after the event. But what happens if the whole place burnt down or something like that, a far worse situation? Surely there was something that should have been done to bring to the attention that these power outages and the backup systems are not working. And I find it very hard to believe that this wasn't brought to the attention of the authorities, of GCS, and I'm sure you did.
It was indeed brought to their attention. And as my colleague mentioned, we are there to maintain the system, and that's what we did. And hence we recommended our recommendations in our report, and we're managing those DVRs specifically, looking at it on a daily basis, just to ensure that this is not happening again. But fortunately, with the UPS being up and running now, we haven't seen those recordings failing.
So it's another coincidence during this event that the power backups were not working, another coincidence which falls into, just plays into the conspiracy theory that this was carefully planned. And I'm not accusing you of being involved, but there were people inside the prison that were aware of these deficiencies. And I put it to you that you contributed to this by not ensuring that the maintenance of the system was up to scratch, in as much as there were power outages, which you say is out of your control, but you can't say all these dates and nothing has happened. Surely you don't just leave it. This is on the 12th of May you make this report. I'm sure you must agree with me that it points out an egregious negligence. Do you have anything to comment on that?
No comment on
Okay.
that.
So I just want to, I don't quite understand this strange affidavit that you've added here by the, maybe we can just quickly go to that. This affidavit by the interpreter who did the polygraph report. And this is part of an annexure that he has now provided on the 31st of May. By the way, it seems that a lot of attention has only been given now in the last month or week. Whereas this incident took place last year. Now suddenly everyone's running around, polygraph tests, everything. They say in Afrikaans, benode katte maak benode spronge. And in other words, in English, cats on a hot tin roof, everyone's jumping around. But this is an affidavit by the interpreter at the polygraph report who did the polygraph, and he indicates that there's some informal discussion that it took place after this. Can you explain why is this attached? Was this given to the police because...
So, Honourable Chair, if I may shed some light on this matter. What happened is, on the day of the polygraph test, when it was conducted, this individual whose affidavit you're referring to is indeed the translator. that we had arranged who accompanied the polygraph examinator on the day. Now, prior to the polygraph test, certain pertinent information was divulged to this translator, which was then relayed to us. We sought to have this individual to post to the affidavit.
So it's headed Bester case versus Thabo Lipolo, and this is the interpreter, this guy. So I don't understand, Bester case. Is this an affidavit that's was given to the police? I see it was signed on the 31st of March. What is this, where is this, is this and this is a police, it seems, where is this affidavit now? Is it in a police docket?
So that affidavit, I believe, was commissioned at a SAPS branch, and it has been furnished to the respective investigating officers.
I'm not going to go through it all, but it just indicates that there was a lot of discussion about a prison, a planning to kidnap a person, and just this last paragraph. On February, the last week, Motsi and Sebach Set Labi involved Thabo Lipolo, that is the person that did the polygraph, that underwent the polygraph test. It was the technician that went and possibly or probably unplugged the DCR. Asked that he must switch the camera off as he worked as the technician, and he told them that he can make it a demo. So it seems that there was a discussion whilst the polygraph or before the polygraph where this information was divulged by the technician to the person interpreting the polygraph, where he in effect admitted. And obviously one's got to test the veracity of this, but he admitted that he worked as the technician and that he can make it happen. Would you agree with that?
That is correct. In light of these new developments, he has subsequently handed himself over to SAPS.
Again, it is highly regrettable that this information only comes out on the 31st of March, whilst as a result of the work of investigative journalists. Otherwise, we would never have had this. Otherwise, you wouldn't have even conducted this polygraph test, etc., because it raises serious questions about what the level of maintenance that you did do. Chair, I am reaching a conclusion, but it seems to be so many coincidences, and it indicates, again, as we've heard time and again, careful involvement of not only the night staff there, but now also the involvement of your official. And obviously, one would be interested to find out whether there's been a lifestyle audit done on him, whether there's suddenly been some cash in his bank account or not. I see he's worked for your company for 19 years. He's probably got a very good reputation. But what steps, what further steps did you say he's been suspended?
Yes, so off the back of the polygraph test, he was suspended and subjected to further disciplinary action where he was going to be charged. The results of that I'm not aware of at this stage. With that being said, however, we have been informed that he has subsequently handed himself over.
Chair, I must say I find it highly unsatisfactory that this information has all come out at this very late stage, whilst there were letters written already raising these issues way back on 12th of May 2022. This information was given to G4S. Was this information at that stage given to anybody else? Such as the investigating police, such as JIX?
It was only issued to G4S.
Sorry?
Only issued to G4S at the time.
Well, maybe we should ask them to explain why this information wasn't provided to JIX and to other institutions. JIX, the Inspector Judge, is here. I'm sure you confirm he had no knowledge of this. It's shocking. Thank you, Chair. No more questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not going into who did what and when, I'm referring to your document Annexure D, second paragraph, last sentence, where you said, it stated there, all equipment is working as expected. So for a layman, when it comes to these technical things, does this mean that on the 4th, the cameras and all other related equipment was functioning? Or what does working as expected mean?
My understanding is that the system was operational, the cameras were working, they hadn't been, tampered with. The DVR recordings were recording as per expected, and further than that, I can't comment.
Okay, so the power fluctuations, the malfunctioning UPS was no longer an issue the morning after the incident occurred.
That's correct. So if I can just add to that, my understanding is that the system will reboot and then everything would come back online and operate as expected.
Okay. So somehow crucial equipment did not function during the time that the incident occurred, but worked again shortly after the incident occurred. Is that correct?
That's correct.
When we visited the facility, I saw that there's a camera inside the control room at the door, just when you enter it from the little boardroom that's inside there. Now, as I understand it, to gain access to the server room, you have to go through the control room. Did that camera, was that one also not functioning during that time?
That's 100% correct, and this is the footage we are referring to that depicts this individual.
So there is footage of this individual?
As I understand it, that's correct.
Can that individual be identified in the footage? Because it's not very far away. The camera is not, it's not a wide angle thing, it's very close by.
Yes, he can be identified.
Where's that footage?
We are not in possession of that footage. The footage lies with the respective investigating officers.
Okay. After you gave a report to G4S on the morning after you investigated the malfunction, did you get a request from G4S to fix the system in any way or form? Because clearly there was a malfunction. Did you have to fix anything after your investigation?
Well, after our investigation, we did what we could at the time with the resources, electronic resources that we had.
Which was what?
And this is now the DVR. So the DVR was online again, and the cameras was online. The only thing that we could have done at the time was, which is in our report, our recommendations and the quotations that we've submitted to G4S.
Quotation. But did you, in the meantime, fix the system according to that?
We could not fix most of it due to the recommendations. So we had to implement that before the system could be fully and 100% functional.
Okay, so from a technical perspective, speaking now, in your opinion, could this be pulled off successfully without help with the technical aspects of this very complicated system? This whole escape, is it possible without technical assistance?
I cannot comment on that.
You cannot comment? Well, it's easy. I mean, you work for these guys. You are technical in the job that you perform. It's every day. In your opinion, is it possible or not for an individual to escape a maximum security prison with a very highly technical and complicated security system as the one that's installed here without being assisted with those technical aspects of exactly how this system works.
I can't comment on that.
Okay, you don't know, or you don't want to say?
I don't know.
You don't know? You don't know, okay. So you also, just to be clear then, sorry to belabor the point now, you don't think it's possible that someone with the necessary technical expertise in exactly how this system functions, where to switch what off and on, or whatever the case may be, from your company, because I don't think that employees that's trained in correctional management would necessarily possess the skill set to know exactly what's going on here. Someone from your company, which has the skills, assisted Mr. Bester and his accomplices that assisted him in getting away? Or do you think that's not in the realm of possibility over here?
As mentioned earlier, it seems to, or all evidence seems to suggest that, but once again, all assumptions and speculations.
Then my very last question, just from your own perspective, why did it take so long to investigate everything that perspired on that specific day?
So if
From a technical point of view, in terms of the system failures and the recommendations, and all of a sudden, as Honorable Swart mentioned now, you know, polygraph tests and interviews with a whole variety of people, since obviously there was proof that, you know, something is amiss over here, but it was done a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
So it's only recently come to light that this has now moved from suicide to murder. Since the recent media uproar, we've, you know, conducted our internal investigations, acted with due diligence. Like I've said, from the outset, we've been open and transparent. We've provided all the documentation that we are in possession of to the relevant authorities and respective investigating officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Engelbrecht. Honorable Breitenbach.
Mr. Williams, I just need to understand this. You're the legal advisor.
That's correct, yes.
You have no personal knowledge of any of these incidents.
I only have the personal knowledge of what's recently been in the media.
Yeah, so you read it, just like me. You don't have personal knowledge.
That's correct.
You're a lawyer, you know what personal knowledge is.
That's
Saw it
correct.
yourself, touched it yourself, read it yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. So you don't have that. And you, madam, also have no personal knowledge.
Sorry, what do you mean by personal knowledge?
Did you conduct the investigation?
No, yeah, sorry, yeah. No, I did not conduct the investigation. This is reports received from our technicians.
So who did conduct the investigation?
That would be our senior technicians.
And why haven't they deposed to an affidavit?
They do confirm, so the notice we received from the Department of Correctional Services specifically requested that Letitia depose to an affidavit. There are confirmatory affidavits of the technical team that were there on the day confirming.
So the person who wasn't there deposes to the affidavit, and the people who were there deposed to confirmatories. It's a little odd, don't you think? You're a lawyer.
That's what was requested from us, and that's what we have provided.
No, that's not the question. The question is, don't you find it a little odd? You're a lawyer. Do you not normally use the best evidence, and the best evidence is the person who conducted the investigation?
Those individuals' report has been disclosed, does form part of the affidavit, and they confirmed that they were there on the day.
So would they not have been the best people to be here today to tell us about what they did there, what they found there? Not to say by all accounts, by all reports, possibly, maybe, could be. In fairness to you, neither of you were there. You didn't do the investigation. You're sitting here answering questions that you actually can't answer because you weren't there.
I suppose so.
And where are these people who did the investigation?
I can't answer to that.
Yeah, well, perhaps you can, madam.
No, they are in Johannesburg.
They're in Johannesburg, a small flip away from Cape Town. So you could actually bring them here and they could come and give us first-hand evidence,
You need to,
the
then
best
we can.
evidence. You could do that. Okay. And will they be willing to come without being summoned?
They will.
Oh, good. So, Mr. Chair, may I ask that we consider calling those people to get first-hand evidence as opposed to second-hand evidence or third-hand evidence or whatever this is. Tell me a little bit about Integratron. Who is the holding company, mother company of Integratron?
I can't with certainty answer that. I've only been in their employ since last year, June. The holding company, if I'm not mistaken, and Letitia, correct me, I think is Bona Ikamva.
Is who?
Bona Ikamva, if I'm not mistaken.
I see. Are they involved at all with SA Fence and Gate?
Yes, they are.
How?
It's also the holding, I think it's the holding company of SA Fence and Gate as well.
I see. And Africa Spec?
Okay. Sorry, Spec Africa Holdings also falls under that branch.
I see. And these are all companies that are the largest shareholders of one Mr. Jeff Greyland, correct?
That's correct.
And he's somebody who the inimitable Angela Agrizzi had a lot to say about at the Zondo Commission. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yes. Also a member of the Progressive Business Forum of the ANC?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, well, I can help you there, it is. And quite a big donor. So, moving on swiftly. You said something that intrigued me, Mr. Williams. You said the only loss, it intrigued me because you're a lawyer and it's an odd statement to make. You said the only logical conclusion that you could reach from the video footage of this person going into the room and then the footage, the recording function being switched off, is that it may have been possible for him to have been involved. The only logical conclusion is that it may have been possible. I mean, it either is or it isn't. It's not a maybe situation. So you have the footage. Have you seen the footage yourself? Have you watched it?
I have seen the footage.
Okay,
yes.
so you can tell us about it. Did anybody else walk into that room after him?
No.
Did anybody else walk into the room after him and before somebody went to restore the function, I presume, from your office?
I can't with certainty say. The video footage is approximately how long? It's only a snippet of that specific
Well,
incident.
where's the rest of it?
We are not in possession of that.
Who is in possession of it?
The investigating officers.
Yes, but you were initially in possession of it.
So we are only in possession of a snippet of the individual entering the room.
Why?
Sorry?
Why?
Why are we in possession of that?
Why are you only in possession of a snippet?
So we were instructed that we may not remove the footage because that is the position of G4S as I understand it.
Yeah?
As such, the respective video footage is with the investigating officer of the Mangaung Correctional Centre.
So if we want to, we can watch the footage and we can see how many people entered the room between switch off time at 7 o'clock till come back time at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I suppose that's possible.
Good. Perhaps we should do that. You say that you supply qualified technical resources to maintain the security installation for G4S at the Mangaung facility.
That's correct.
Those are your words, not mine. Not your words. So, if you
Sorry, Honorable Breitenbach. Sir, you are told that you are too close to the mic. You must not speak directly to the mic, you're disturbing sound.
My apologies, Honourable Chair.
Thank you.
So if you're supplying qualified technical resources to maintain the security installation for G4S at the Mangaung facility, how did this happen? How is it possible that there's no backup system, that this intervention by humans is possible and is not able, why is the system not able to be overridden? How are you supplying qualified technical resources to maintain the security installation when if somebody walks in and pulls the plug out?
I don't have an answer. I cannot comment on that.
Well, the answer is very simple. You're not supplying qualified technical resources to maintain the security installation. Because if you were, you wouldn't be able to walk in and pull the plug out. Because that's what happened, right? Somebody pulled the plug out. And it rebooted and came back online when somebody pushed the plug back in. I suppose that was one of your suitably qualified technical resources who plugged it back in. I'm not a suitably qualified technical resource, and even I can push a plug back in. So I don't know what job it is you're doing, and I don't know how much you're getting paid for it, but it sounds unbelievably dodgy to me. That somebody can walk into a room, have access to a room of that sensitivity, and whip the plug out the wall, and boom, no more recording. And there's no way to see that. Why is there not a function that warns you that the recording has stopped? Why can you not see on the screen that those people are sitting watching, that the recording has stopped? Why isn't there a backup for that? What kind of qualified technical resources are maintaining the security installation? They're just not. You want to comment? No, didn't think so. So all of this happened in May or last year. At least by October, at least by October, everybody should have known that that Bester was no longer in prison. But you knew immediately after the incident took place, whether you thought it was an escape or a suicide, you knew that somebody had unplugged the security system, the recording system, because you had a movie of it, and you knew who it was. Or you should have known. You should have a very good idea. Yet you waited a year to start investigating it, take a polygraph. Why? What was the reason for that delay?
So that footage doesn't necessarily show the individual pulling the plugs off. For argument's sake, the individual walks through the door, like you've mentioned, into the control room, and then it's there on the other side. The footage...
And then, sorry.
Excuse me. The footage just depicts the individual standing there. It doesn't necessarily show the individual entering past that point.
What kind of a camera doesn't show you walking past it? How does it miss you walking past it? Picks you up standing over there, but not coming there.
I can't answer to that.
There's so many things that both of you can't answer. With respect, and I'm not blaming you because you were sent here by your company to be the fall guys for this inquiry. I really think you need to bring your technical people who did the investigation, and so they can come and answer this. They can't say, we can't answer that. They must answer it. Because if they can't answer it, then what you need to do is you need to repay GCS for every cent they've ever spent on you because you're not doing the job that you're supposed to do. So I think that you should really bring those people so that we can question them. Because in fairness to you, you don't have first-hand knowledge. And so you're here looking a little silly, and it's not your fault. So nobody can blame you for that. It's your company. They shouldn't have sent you. They should have sent the real people. And to send their legal advisor and their director, who have no first-hand knowledge of this entire escapade, is quite frankly, well, I don't know what it is. I think you should take it up with them. I'd consider other employment if I were you. In any event, so a year later, you, why did you polygraph this particular individual?
So we polygraphed this individual off the back of the footage.
I see. So a year ago, you knew it was him, but nobody investigated. Nobody asked any questions. He walks into the room, he stands there looking like a banana, and the footage goes off. And nobody makes that connection. And lo and behold, as soon as the incident in the prison is over, the footage comes back on. Nobody investigates. Nobody asks him any questions. For a year, he was in your employ, doing whatever it is that he does. Lord alone knows what it is if I look at this mess. And now you investigate a year later because Groundup did an investigation and says he escaped on your watch. Am I correct?
I suppose so, yes.
Yeah. No, it's really unfair for me to continue questioning you like this. You can't answer and it's not your fault. So we need people, please, who can answer. And Mr. Chair, I would request that we make time to talk to the people who did the investigation, and they must come and answer these questions. It's unfair for you to sit here like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Breitenbach, Honorable Horn. No expropriation now.
Yes, thank you.
I hope you will behave.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Since when have you provided this service to G4S at the Mangaung Center?
Speaking under correction, but I believe it's from 2004.
Okay, and did you provide the systems that you now maintain?
No, I speak under correction, but I don't think so. So the equipment, no, we're just maintaining the equipment in the system, yes.
Okay. And picking up where the Honorable Breitenbach referred to the fact that you to assist the maintenance of really, well it said here security installation, but I would think it refers rather to ensuring that as part of the security operations at this prison, there is an uninterrupted, as far as possible, video oversight of what's happening. Am I correct in saying that's ultimately the purpose of your service there?
You can say that.
Okay. So initially, did you see the interruption on the night of the incident different to the interruptions caused by what you call in your affidavit the power interruptions?
Please repeat.
So you refer to your affidavit that in the month of April preceding the event, there was a number of power interruptions at the center. So without now having the hindsight of knowing somebody walked into the control room and unplugged the DVR, how did you view the absence of recording at the time? Was it according to your systems, different to an ordinary power interruption?
My apologies, but again, this will have to go back to the technical team.
Okay. Was there previous incidences where the recording stopped for a period?
Not that I'm aware of.
That, again, for the team, and we can draw logs to confirm that.
So, your report of the 12th of May, in which you then make some recommendations about improving the systems, and I think in answer to what the Honourable Nivo Drachen asked at at the beginning, say to build in certain alerts for future happenings. If this was the first incident of this nature, why did it necessitate this type of recommendation?
My apologies, but again, I will have to revert.
So on whose initiative was this report drafted?
This was based on the investigation the technicians did. So that's why we had to compile the report and submit it to G4A.
Okay. So this footage of the control room, why was that kept for longer than all other footage at the center?
I can't answer to that.
So, Ms. Pedro, you're looking at me like I'm making no sense, but we've heard all day long that all footage are wiped out after 2 weeks of every camera at that institution.
I cannot respond to that. All I can say that the footage is the property of G4S, and whether they still have the footage, I cannot comment on that.
So when were you told not to wipe it out?
I was not told not to wipe it out.
Well, your
so I
company,
cannot.
your representatives. You can't say. So in terms of the paragraph 7 time frame, you claim that only on the 27th of March was there this discussion with Mr. Zander Snyder of G4S. And there it transpired that the cables had been unplugged. So once again, in terms of your report then, of the 12th of May 2022, how could you have then known that the cables was unplugged and that some sort of alert is now necessary to be built into the system?
So paragraph 7, there is a technical explanation for that, and I will highlight that as well for the team to give a proper response on that one. Or under
No, but this is not a technical, a question that needs a technical answer. On the one hand, you say, just after the incident on the 12th of May, you on your own initiative did an investigation, and you advised the client, you even quoted, I don't know whether it was unsolicited, that this system must now be improved to include an alert that the type of eventuality that leads to a stop in the recording should be, there should be at least an alert in the system to when that happens again. How could you have deduced that this was the cause of the lack of a recording if you only on the 27th of March heard that this was what actually happened?
I, at this time, cannot respond to that. Sorry.
Sure. I think as, I don't know whether it is, Chair, because we're now past 6, but I mean, the responses that has dried up. Yeah, I'll then also wait for the technical team to ask those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart, Honorable Janche.
I suggest that you pause there for the day.
Colleagues, before we adjourn, a few issues. One, I will ask the committee secretary to read the documents or information that was asked during the course of the day that needs to be provided to the committee. I think certain members asked for certain information to be given in writing. Just to remind everybody the information that is required, I will ask him to take us through that.
Yes, Chair, from G4S, we have got records of visitors to Mr. Bester. More information regarding the person who was moved out of cell 35. When did he apply to move out and the reasons given? And then there was one about how many, there was one about relatives of officials employed by DCS or working at the Mangaung Correctional Center. And then there was details on transfers and I'm struggling to read this in writing. I think it's transfers and dismissals related to this matter. And then we also wanted all programs offered at the center and the contractors involved. Yeah, that is what we managed to capture for G4S. The details of contractors at the center and the nature of services that they are rendering.
Before you move from here,
I know we're concluding, but there's a very important reference here to an affidavit in this affidavit, and I wondered where that could be. And this is the affidavit in paragraph 12 by Vickers van Tonder, because that seems to be a very critical one, whether you've got it or whether we can ask G4S. And it is provided here. It's provided a sworn affidavit to G4S for their records. This was provided to Rudy Mattia, who presumably is the G4S investigator. Maybe we can try to get that affidavit if it is available from G4S, or if it is available, I don't know. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and two more requests. I think it's Dr. Nandipa's visitation records to the center. And then there was one about the duration of Mr. Bester's studies at, is it Damelin or? Yes.
Honorable Yako?
Sorry, Chair, I'm just a little confused with the process that we're on now. Are we then asking any other questions we would have wanted to ask so that he can note that if we want documentation on certain things, or we're concluding now on what we've already discussed, because tomorrow is another day for us to actually have more questions posed to G4S and other entities. I just want to have clarity. Are we going to keep adding to what is on that list, or tomorrow are we carrying on with the new day, having new questions to ask?
No, we are making a summary of documents that were requested today. Yes. Is that all? Any addition, members? Not something that you're going to ask tomorrow, issues that you asked today that were not captured by the secretary? Let's start with Honorable Niboto, and I'll come to you.
Sorry, Chair, maybe I didn't catch that, but the Integratron's, the recommendations that they made in their report to G4S, I would like to see the recommendations made, please. I don't know if it was mentioned, but yeah.
Okay. Honorable Ramolube.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for correctly pronouncing my surname. I'm having difficulties with people referring me to Ramulobedu. It's Ramulobe. Chair, I wanted to say a similar thing from Honorable Velma, but the second one, Chair, on what would have noted the request for G4S. Part of my follow-up that I wanted to make was on the basis of the inmate that was moved from cell 35 on the actual day that Bester was put in. The name of the inmate is Mukulu Sebatan and was actually moved on the 30th March 2022, and he was quite unhappy with that removal from the cell, to a point that he cancelled. He was angry. He cancelled his own safety because if he went in on the basis of safety, he cancelled it, and he was moved to Port Phillip. If G4S can confirm all of this for us on the basis of that report. Thank you.
Okay.